Is it on the money?
Yeah, it's not. Normally it says it's going to rain at 11, and at 11 you start getting the drops.
Do you know otherwise something? We know how we all got to cut grass, and sometimes you hear lawnmowers, and somebody's watching the mobile phone thing, and there's the opportunity. And then, do you know if you leave it in there and it's raining, you're thinking that person must have checked their phone to get the grass cut.
Sometimes you wait for the rain if you don't really want to do it, don't you? You know what I mean?
Oh, it's raining.
You know it's going to rain at 2, but you'll say, you know what, I'll do the lawn at 2.
But you can push that out a few times, but you know when it's up to your knees, the grass, then you're thinking I should have cut.
But that's good now in this day and age. It's good
I know,
for the
biodiversity and all of that, and wildflowers and stuff.
Great excuses. There's tons of excuses now if you don't want to mow the lawn. It's great.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I need one of them excuses.
All right,
good luck.
Take care of yourself, Lee. It is the 9 till noon show on the way. Let's get a news update first, though, and it is over now to Donna Marie Doherty.
Thanks, Greg. Good morning. An Inishowen councillor is calling for an end to the stalemate in relation to the acquisition of 58 social housing units in Carndonagh. Councillor Albert Doherty said he received calls from many housing applicants after seeing the houses online with the open to expression of interest forms to the general public. He is asking for all stakeholders to remain in negotiations and conclude the deal. Councillor Doherty added that there is a risk that Carndonagh is being abandoned.
I am unsure because I haven't had clarity, but what I am sure of is that there's a social housing need in Inishowen. There's a social housing need in the Carndonagh area. We have been badly served by the provision of social housing and programmes. We have been dependent on turnkey developments, and spending on housing is an investment in a community. Not spending or abandoning a development is also abandoning a community. And this community needs social housing, and we need them immediately.
The Executive Board of RTE is being stood down from today. The new Director General confirmed the news in an email to staff this morning. Stephanie Rohan reports.
In his email, Kevin Backhurst says he understands the staff of RTE are deeply upset and angry. He says he plans to be a visible and available Director General, and change will be essential to rebuild trust in public service broadcasting. He says the Executive Board is being stood down today and will be replaced with a temporary interim leadership team. A new permanent leadership team will be announced in due course, which Kevin Backhurst says will be open, transparent and accountable. Their salaries will also be published every year, along with those of the top 10 presenters. The NUJ has welcomed the developments, saying it hopes this marks the beginning of a new beginning at RTE, while Media Minister Catherine Martin says it's time for a reset at the state broadcaster.
A man was assaulted in a house in Derry last night during what is reported to have been an aggravated burglary. The house is located in Grafton Street, with the incident occurring at around 11 p.m. It is believed 2 men forced their way onto the property. One was armed with a golf club. The 34-year-old victim was taken to hospital following head injuries sustained. And looking now to the weather, largely dry at first with some sunny spells early on. By afternoon, cloud will increase, bringing scattered outbreaks of rain or showers for the rest of the day. Some heavy or thundery downpours are possible with the risk of spot flooding. Highest temperatures of 17 to 21 degrees and a light to moderate southerly or variable breezes. That's all for now. We'll be back again with the next news update at 10 o'clock. Till then, morning.
Whether it's a 5 or 10k, half or full marathon, everyone's running journey is different. Find your pace with the Summer of Running series with Irish Life Dublin Marathon. Search Irish Life Summer of Running series to sign up. A better life with Irish Life.
The county's #1 talk show, The 9 till Noon Show on Highland Radio. And now, it's time for the talk of the Northwest, The 9 till Noon Show with Greg Hughes on Highland Radio.
Hello and a very good morning to you. It's 5 minutes past 9 on this Monday, the 10th of July, and you're very welcome along to another edition, another week of the 9 till Noon Show. I hope you had a lovely weekend, whatever you were doing, if you were able to get out and enjoy the various events that have started to fill our weekends here now across the Northwest. Let us know what you're up to anyway, and I'll give you the telephone line and the text line, and you can use that for your Calls and comments as well. 086 60 25,000. That's the WhatsApp and text line from outside the Republic. Of course, 0035386 60 25,000. You can give us a call, 07491 25,000, or again from outside the Republic, 003537491 25,000. And feel free to email from anywhere in the world, comments@highlandradio.com. Right, it's another busy Monday morning. Lots to get through today. So let's run through what's on the front of the newspapers this morning and inside some of them, because there's one story again dominating most of the front pages. But we'll start with the locals. The Derry People Donegal News. Thousands of people took part and viewed what was the largest ever Orange Parade in Rosnala on Saturday, known as the Donegal 12th. According to Donegal County Grand Master David Mahan, there were 53 bands and 70 judges from all across the country which took part in the glorious sunshine. Apart from those taking part in the march and proudly displaying their sashes, thousands turned out to view and enjoy the spectacle as participants made their way from St. John's Parish Church to the beach, a route of around a mile. Speaking to the Donegal News yesterday, Mr. Mahan said the day had been a huge success, which everyone seemed to enjoy. The Derry News this morning tells us that the decision by the Department for Communities to reappoint Capita to carry out assessments for child disability living alone allowance has been slammed by local anti-poverty campaigner Sinead Quinn. Capita will also carry out assessment for personal independent payment, employment and support allowances and universal credit. Ms. Quinn, who is herself chronically ill and disabled, said it was absolutely despicable. Capita had been awarded a further social security contract in the north. You can read more from her in that interview in the paper today. On to the Irish Times, and this is the story leading all of the papers. Widespread changes in the management of RTE will be unveiled this morning as the new Director General, Kevin Backhurst, promised action after weeks of controversy. Yesterday, the Director of Strategy, Rory Coveney, resigned from his role in order to make way for a fresh lead team within the organisation. Mr Coveney, who's the brother of Fine Gael Minister Simon Coveney and who was part of RTE's executive management, came under pressure during Oireachtas hearings last week over RTE's decision to run the Toy Show the Musical project. He defended the project despite the fact it lost $2.2 million in its first year. Staff will receive an email from Mr Backhurst this morning, which they have received, outlining his plans to restore trust in the organisation after it emerged that RTE underreported the salary paid to star presenter Ryan Tubridy. He is before Oireachtas committees tomorrow from 11:30. I read elsewhere that pubs are going to be showing it, such as the level of interest. But Mr Backhurst announced a number of changes which are going to help steady the ship. A new executive, more transparency on wages, and he's made other commitments as well. So maybe it is at the point now, maybe, depending on how tomorrow goes, how this week goes, that that is behind them to some extent. The rebuilding process beginning, perhaps. I don't know. But what do you all think? 086 60 25,000. There was unsavoury scenes, to say the very least, in County Tyrone at the weekend. I really genuinely find it hard to believe that in 2023 we have adults behaving like this, regardless of what anyone's views or differences are. It just is something I can't get my head around or get any sense of understanding of. Taoiseach Leo Varadkar does not believe the image of his poster being burned on a loyalist bonfire accurately reflected the opinion of the majority of unionists, all Northern Ireland residents, towards the Republic and its leaders. The Police Service of Northern Ireland is investigating the incident in Tyrone on Saturday evening as a potential hate crime. Photographs, videos and social media posts about the construction of the giant bonfire, as well as it being set alight, are being studied by police. A large poster of the Taoiseach was erected on top of an old boat bedecked with two tricolours and placards criticising the Good Friday Agreement. It was then set alight. Now, as I say, I don't care who's doing it about who, but burning people's images and people's flags, I don't know. I can't get my head around it. But a large crowd seemed to enjoy it. They attended the bonfire burning and cheered as it vanished in flames. Speaking in court yesterday, Mr Varadkar said he was aware of the incident, but did not believe it reflected the opinion of the vast majority of people in Northern Ireland. Well, does it or doesn't it? 003538660 25,000. Or what is the logic, or what's the significance of it? What does it mean to be putting people's images up? I mean, if you wanted the Good Friday Agreement, if you were against that, and you wanted to say it's a ship sinking and burn the boat, but people's images, people's flags, as I say, I just don't understand. Here's another thing. We're going to be talking about this a little later on as well. A ban on phone and smart devices at schools, thanks to parent power, should be rolled out across the country. It was demanded last night. Parents and principals of 8 schools in Greystones, County Wicklow, banned smartphones, tablets and other devices among children until they hit secondary school age. And their successful no smart device voluntary code should be rolled out nationwide, according to Senator Mary Siri Kearney, who'll join us later, as I mentioned. The code saw parents agreed to ban smartphones, smart pads and access to age-inappropriate apps such as Snapchat, Instagram, WhatsApp, TikTok and Discord. Many parents, said the Senator, have a lot of concerns about their child's well-being and safety when they allow them to use smart devices, she added. So would it be easier? Because it's difficult as a parent. You would know, wouldn't you? Because they say, please, 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 please. Such and such has one, such and such has one, and it gets difficult. You know, and life is tough, very tough at times. And, you know, you try and work through everything and you go, right, okay, you know, but you can't do this and you can't do that. It would help, I think it would help, is, look, they're banned in schools. No one can take it to school. That's just the way it is. It might make it easier for parents. Are you for or against such an idea? As I say, we'll be talking about it in a little bit more detail later, but maybe you want to get your opinion in right now. 086 60 25,000. In the Irish Sun, we read that most 13-year-olds are healthy, have made the move to secondary school well and feel supported. This according to new research, and seems like good news on the face of it. This is despite those children being born in 2008 and growing up during their formative years in a recession. The Department of Children's Growing Up in Ireland report added their middle childhood would have seen major social changes in Ireland, such as the marriage equality referendum, and they've grown up in a time of significant technological changes. More than 6,000 children aged 13 and their caregivers were interviewed for the government study. The survey examined how their life has changed since they were being interviewed at the age 9. Under the topic of education, the department said the vast majority of the 13-year-olds had made the transition to secondary school, and 97% agreed they had made new friends. Okay, which is positive, doesn't it? Seems positive. The RTE have their issues. BBC also are at the currently are in the throes of a controversy. The BBC has suspended the high-profile presenter accused of paying a teenager £35,000 sterling for sexual images, and has reported the allegations to the police. This is in the Irish Daily Star, and it's all over British media, primarily on the BBC. The alleged victim, now 20, was reportedly 17 when they first started receiving payments for sending the explicit pictures. The scandal is rumoured to involve one of the BBC's most senior, highly paid stars, who is a household name. Gary Lineker and Ryland Clark are among the BBC presenters who publicly stated they were not the star in question, which Lineker tweeted, "Hate to disappoint the haters, but it's not me." And this is the kind of problem, well, not the kind of problem, a real problem with social media, particularly Elon Musk's incarnation of it, in that, and the mainstream media too, not innocent in this, is that as soon as the person was anonymised, everyone was speculating as to who it was or who they hoped it might be. The person seems to have pretty much been named now on social media, though not publicly, and it is a shocker. There's just no doubt about it. But as I say, Ryland Clark also declared, "Not sure why my name's floating about, but read that story. That ain't me, babe," he said. Jeremy Vine also said it wasn't he. Following the suspension of the star at the centre of the scandal, questions still remain over why it had taken so long for any action by the BBC to take place after the complaint was made 7 weeks ago on May 19th. But as I say, it's a huge scandal across the water. And the person who is accused is entitled to their privacy, but that just means that the speculation continues as to who it might be, which is kind of unfair on everybody else, isn't it? But I don't know how they're going to square that circle there. And lastly, in the Irish Daily Mirror, the justice system is being forced to compensate criminals for not protecting them while they serve their jail sentences. It's been revealed that the prison service is facing a bill of up to, wait for it, €56 million in compensation claims from prisoners and others. The Oireachtas Public Accounts Committee has been told that 1,007 claims have been made, each worth more than €50,000 in average. Dublin's Mountjoy Prison has by far the highest potential liability, with 389 claims outstanding, which could cost the taxpayer over €14 million. I mean, this is really, in a way, a bigger controversy than the other one. Next highest is Portlaoise Prison, where there have been 102 claims, which, if successful, could hit the state for nearly 13 million. But I suppose the key piece of information there is, if successful, but the bill, 56 million in compensation for prisoners. We're all doing it wrong, really. We should not pay our TV licence, go to prison and sue and come out much better off all round, perhaps. That's a joke, by the way. I'm not for a moment suggesting that perhaps you should be. All right, okay, let's take a break. We'll be back with more on the 9 till noon show very shortly.
The newspapers are courtesy of Kelly Centra Mountaintop Letterkenny, the C-Store National Large Forecourt of the Year for 2022.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, offering low-rate car loans with fast approval. Apply online at letterkennycu.ie or in office today.
It's the 50% off mega summer sale at Right Price Tiles and Wood Flooring. Up to 50% off all tiles, wood flooring, outdoor porcelain tiles, cladding and bathware. Everything in store has been slashed in price. The Right Price Tiles and Wood Flooring 50% off mega summer sale. Stores nationwide. Sale now on.
In the next 15 seconds, you're going to find out where is the best place in the Northwest to buy a bed or mattress. It's Restex Beds and Furniture Mountaintop Letterkenny, where comfort meets style.
Want to live a more sustainable lifestyle, but not too sure how to start? Join me, Donna Marie Doherty, every Tuesday at 12:30 for It's Ours to Protect to learn all the tips and tricks. Ours to Protect is funded by Commission Limon with a television licence fee and is a partnership between Highland Radio and the Independent Broadcasters of Ireland. Check out ourstoprotect.ie for more info.
Highland Radio time checks with Expressway. Travel Route 32 from Letterkenny to Dublin when you book online and travel for less. Expressway, bringing you the time at...
It's 17 minutes past 9. Now, more than 1,000 people were treated at the country's 6 sexual assault treatment units last year. The latest annual report of the HSE-funded units also revealed a growing trend of the use of extreme violence in assaults. The centres are located in Letterkenny, of course, Dublin, Cork, Waterford, Mullingar and Galway. We're joined on the programme now by Nolene Blackwell. Of the Rape Crisis Centres. Good morning to you, CEO of the Dublin Rape Crisis Centre. Nolene, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Greg. Thank you for having me.
Looking at the figures, what's your initial reaction? I mean, it's important we get that information out there so people know what's going on. 1,072 people were treated at the country's 6 sexual assault treatment units last year. That's a significant increase on 2021. But what about, say, 2019? Perhaps maybe there was that might be a figure that gives us a better idea of what's happening.
Yeah, actually, it is really, I think it is. There was a bit of a dip during COVID for a number of reasons, probably. Hospitals were harder to access. People weren't going out as much. And there was a certain element whereby people were a bit reluctant sometimes to look for help if they'd been out socialising where perhaps it wasn't socially acceptable or even legal at the time. So 2019 it probably is a better indicator. But even from that, the figures are up 10% on what they were in 2019. And I think, Greg, it might be worth just saying what the sexual assault treatment units are, because of the 1,000 plus who were seen in 2022, over about 11% of them, so over 100 people were seen in Letterkenny. And these are specialised units attached to 6 of the country's hospitals, where people can go after a rape or other sexual assault and get medical help, just check for possible sexually transmitted disease, look for emergency contraception if they need it, look for other medical help. And it's also a place where these specialised units know how to collect evidence for forensic purposes. So if there was to be evidence needed for a court case later, they would pick that up. So they're highly specialised units, and they're a great thing to have. And in all of the various centres, including in Letterkenny, there's support available from the Rape Crisis Centre. So Donegal Rape Crisis Centre supports people who go to that if they want it at the time and afterwards. And they are there specifically to give that help, but they also give us this really valuable information about the numbers of people who contact them.
Yeah, and also too, and we've said it before, worth reiterating that it's obviously best to go to one of these centres as soon as you can, but it doesn't necessarily trigger a train of events, i.e. Court cases and all that type of stuff in the first instance. It's about the treatment and care and the gathering of information or evidence if required.
Yeah, and they can store that evidence.
Yes.
If somebody is, some people will be absolutely clear. They'll have come to the centre through the Gardaí and they want the evidence collected for the Gardaí. But some people will not be so sure. And all the units can store the evidence, normally for up to a year, a little bit longer if necessary. But often people look for that evidence maybe 2, 3, 6 months later, or they will tell the guards to go ahead. So it's really useful. You don't have to make these big decisions on the night. You just have to look out for yourself.
But just so it's clear for everyone, because the location or how you access, the location would be made aware once you begin to engage. It might not be very clear to people generally. It's only maybe in a crisis that you might need to know. So if someone is the victim of this type of a crime and in the first instance they're not ready to speak to the guards or they don't fancy turning up to the ED, how are you referred to, or what is the pathway to actually getting to one of these crisis centres?
And so there's a number of pathways. So a lot of people come through the Gardaí. So they report the assault, including the rape, to the Gardaí, and the Gardaí will direct them. This is really only useful, to be honest, if it's within a short enough time of the rape. So if it's over, the longest time that they seem to have recorded last year was a month. They like to see people as quickly as possible, preferably certainly within a week, because evidence deteriorates over time. So a lot are referred by the Gardaí. Some are referred by local rape crisis centres or by the National 24-hour helpline. So a small percentage are referred that way. A lot of people find it themselves. It is possible to go to these centres yourself and just turn up, and they will deal with you as well.
Any assault is worrying. Any increase is particularly worrying. But this increase in violence in sexual assaults, I mean, have we learned anything? Do we know why this might be happening? Why we're seeing this trend? Because it's something we can't ignore, nor should we ever.
No, we can't ignore it. It is increasing. It is consistent with what those who deal with sexual assault victims in therapy circumstances and in the guards, it's consistent with what they're seeing and hearing as well, is that extreme violence, gratuitous violence, restraints are increasing in the number of assaults that are presenting. And the SATUs, these units, are very good at collecting it. So there's probably a number of reasons. There are people who are abusive and malicious. So in the context of domestic violence, we know physical violence is a part of it, and domestic violence can often be sexual violence. There is also a worrying increase in the number of people who are getting most of their information about what's normal in a sexual relationship through pornography. And alas, most pornography that people are accessing is abusive. And so that is leading to violence. That the people involved in the relationship think this kind of violence is normal or necessary in a relationship rather than recognising it as abusive in advance.
Yeah, and before we talk about maybe what needs to be done from a government perspective in terms of, how quickly people are seen and what have you, I don't know. I've never really sat down and really thought about it, but you would imagine with all the conversations we have, with all the awareness, that in 2023 we'd be seeing a retraction in things. You know what I mean? That things wouldn't be getting worse. And it's primarily still, overwhelmingly, in terms of who presents at these clinics, it's women. So women are more likely now to be the victims of sexual abuse. And not only that, there's a growing trend that there's a violent nature to that sexual abuse. Like we aren't making improvements, we're going backwards.
Yeah, I wonder, because part of it could be that there's an increase in sexual violence. It could be also that people are more ready to come forward. So if more people are reporting to the guards, it's inevitable that more people will be going to SATUs. There is a huge under-reporting in this area. So it's probably a good thing that people are reporting, are getting the help they need. And people really, a great way of working out whether you need it is to go to the guards or to go to your rape crisis centre. DonegalRapeCrisis.ie or the National Helpline are great resources. I have to leave it there.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. I know you've got another appointment to do. Appreciate your time. That is Nolene Blackwell, who is the CEO of the Dublin Rape Crisis Centre. And that organisation are calling on the government to do a number of things in relation to victims of sexual assault. SATU across Ireland have failed to reach their targets of seeing victims within 3 hours of requesting an examination. Miss Blackwell said in her press statement that usual situations with so many health services at the moment, as on social nighttime hours, make it difficult to staff the treatment units. Nolene has said the long wait times can be incredibly hard for victims because, of course, they're already upset by rape or sexual assault, and while they're waiting for their treatment, they can't go home and change or what have you. So they're looking for government supports to assist in that regard. 086 60 25,000 if you wish to make a comment there.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com. The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, with monster loans available up to €60,000 for all occasions. Visit letterkennycu.ie.
Buddy the Musical is back at the Millennium Forum from Tuesday 8th till Saturday 12th of August. Don't miss this multi-award-winning West End and Broadway smash hit musical. This is a show you'll never forget. Come and join the party. It's just Peggy Superb. Call the ticket hotline on 02871 264455 or visit millenniumforum.co.uk.
Did you know Cool Kids Sligo have the biggest range of baby equipment in the Northwest, with 25 years of baby expertise? Cool Kids Sligo take deposits on your baby bundle. Visit us in-store at Cool Kids Sligo or shop online at babyaccessories.ie for free nationwide delivery. Make Cool Kids Sligo your #1 destination for all things baby.
Need help designing or understanding plumbing requirements for your new bathroom is not a problem. Our experienced staff are equipped to handle any type of bathroom installation, from a simple tap replacement to a complete bathroom overhaul. Call in and see us and view our checklist to make sure you have everything in order. It could save you money and a huge amount of hassle. McDade's Bathroom Plumbing Towers Buncrana, making things simpler for you.
The Lennon Festival Remelton comes to a close tonight, Monday. But before that, there's lots of family fun throughout the afternoon, including pet show and fancy dress. Then later at 8, it's the closing ceremony and fireworks display with live music from Paul McCahill and guests. All happening today, Monday, at the Lennon Festival Remelton.
Caller says, shocking to see RTE run an item on the news last night telling us that pubs are showing Ryan Tubridy's evidence. They're trying to justify the spending of the TV licence fee, and this is what we get, encouraging the public to rush to the pub. Shocking stuff. I think really it's more reactionary that some pub owners are seeing it as a way to attract in clients. The reporting on it as such. I'm not sure they'd be encouraging it, but I respect your point of view and thank you for it. A caller says, not sure what Mr. McMahon considers a successful parade. I believe the displaying of Union Jacks at the parade was nothing short of a disgrace. We've tolerated this sectarian group marching in our country. Think it's now time to stop this march. Not sure there's a massive appetite for it to stop, but anyway. I believe I can say good morning now to Senator Lisa Chambers. Are you there, Lisa?
Morning, Greg. How are you doing?
Great to have you on board. Thanks for joining us. I said this on the programme a couple of times, just going around the Northwest. It just does not seem to be as busy as it was. And talk to some people in the tourism industry, they suggest that there is an issue with people visiting. A, there is a sense that maybe some sectors are pricing themselves out of it, but B, a lot of accommodation is being tied up. Tourist accommodation is being tied up to house refugees. This is something that you want worked on. Too late perhaps for this year, but certainly as we look forward to 2024.
Yeah, definitely. I do think it's an issue, particularly for our part of the country, the West and the Northwest, and actually down as far as in Kerry as well, and Clare and Galway, all along the Western Seaboard, really. There's a lot of hotel accommodation, predominantly the budget hotels, the 2- and 3-star hotels, the guest houses. They have been, a lot of that accommodation has been taken up to house refugees. It was, I suppose, the easy option because the numbers coming in were just extraordinary, much more than we've ever experienced, ever really in the history of the state. We're probably upwards now, including Ukrainian refugees, probably around the 100,000 mark with everybody. So look, we had to house people somewhere, and hotels were, particularly towards the end of last year, because you know, Donegal, Sligo, Mayo, our tourism season doesn't really kick in until kind of Easter, and it kind of, you know, closes up usually around the October time. So we had a lot of vacancy in this region around that time. And so it was the easy option. Now, every part of the country, every county is housing refugees, but for our part of the country, Donegal, for example, I think it's about 50% of Fáilte Ireland registered accommodation is now occupied with refugees. In Mayo, I think we're at about 35%. Longford is 70%. So it varies. Some counties are, I suppose, have a higher occupancy than others, but then some counties would have had more bed nights or more rooms. So Longford would have been coming from quite a low base. It wouldn't have had that many rooms anyways. But just to give a comparison of where we're at. Now, I've raised this. I actually scheduled a debate in the Shannon in May of this year, so 2 months ago, with the Tourism Minister, Catherine Martin, specifically to raise this issue with her. So I said, look, I understand, and I think people understand, we had to do what we had to do to help people that were fleeing war, and hotel accommodation was the obvious place to house people. But we need a plan now for next year. I think this tourism season is already impacted. And it's not the hotels that are housing refugees are doing very well. They're getting paid very, very well. But it's the ancillary businesses, the related businesses. So your pubs, your coffee shops, your restaurants that rely on those hotels and guest houses having tourists. They're the ones that are now feeling the pinch because they don't have the same numbers of tourists in the area, simply because there is nowhere for people to stay. And you mentioned, Greg, about the cost of what is available. It's connected, because the fact that there's less accommodation available, the demand is still there, and so the price goes up. So there are some hotels across the country that are absolutely price gouging and charging astronomical rates. I don't know who's paying it, but they seem to be getting it. Yep. But that's part of the problem, because there isn't enough accommodation to serve the demand that's there, not just for Irish holidaymakers staycationing around the country, but for tourists coming in from, the UK or America or Europe, mainland Europe, that want to come and visit. And we would get a lot of tourists in the West and Northwest from Germany, from France, that like to that like the wild aspect of Ireland,
and
coming to the Western.
It's kind of difficult, Lisa, in that, we could have been critical of sort of the cities, or particularly Dublin, as the gateway to the rest of the country often, that maybe when people land and they see the prices there, they don't really get that if you travel a wee bit into the west, into Mayo, Roscommon, Sligo, Donegal, that you can get really good value. But we're missing a trick on that now, because obviously there's so much accommodation that's not there, and what is there is really quite expensive. Though there are some deals to be had. But if this continues, there's a reputation that we could get that would be hard to shift. That's why really we don't need it running into another year or a year after that, because we could lose a reputation as a place where you can afford to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, Greg, if you actually, take away the nights where you might have a big concert on in Dublin or a big sporting event in Dublin, you'd probably get a cheaper hotel in Dublin than you will in Killarney or Westport, for example. Like the cost of hotels now in some of the big tourist destinations in Donegal and Mayo and Kerry are very expensive. So it's just not affordable for most families that might be visiting from other parts of Ireland. So I do think it's an issue. The minister is aware of it. I spoke to her in the chamber in May. I had a conversation with her after we'd finished the statements, just one-to-one to say, look, what's the plan here? She has assured me she is engaging with Roderick O'Gorman because obviously it's his department that have a policy of using hotels, but Catherine Martin is the minister responsible for tourism. So the two departments need to work together, and obviously all of government as well. And I think people have been very welcoming and very good-natured, and they understand the pressures and the need to house people that are fleeing awful situations. But what the hospitality sector are looking for now, and I've engaged a lot with Fáilte Ireland on this, just to get the statistics, the numbers, the data to back up the points that I've been raising. And they too, in fairness to Fáilte Ireland, they have raised this directly with government. They've published a report on it, and they are highlighting it as well. So there is an expectation from the sector that we would certainly have a plan in place for 2024 and beyond. We can't allow this policy to bed in and become the norm. And look at,
the problem is this, Lisa, if you don't mind, just to cut across you. I mean, listen, most people feel we had to do what we had to do, okay, but to some extent we've created the problem ourselves as well, because as you would know, I'm sure around your area, I would know from around here, is a lot of these hotels, people have been staying in them for quite some time. There's no alternative accommodation, particularly in the tourist areas around. People have bedded into the communities. Some children will be starting their second year of education in the local school. It's going to be very difficult to sort this out now for those reasons, because we've seen what's happened on the one or two few occasions where we try and move people from one area to the next. It simply doesn't happen for many reasons. They don't like it, and locals who cherish them in their communities now don't like it. And as I say, the children being in school. And I'm thinking of 3 or 4 examples. Where would that accommodation actually be locally? I just think this is going to be a really difficult problem to fix. As I say, I like to be optimistic, but I just can see the problems here.
No, it is. There's no point in saying otherwise, Greg. It's going to be a challenge to fix it. The plan was, or I think it still is to provide a modular accommodation in those communities, because we don't want people to leave our communities. You're right. We've had thousands of Ukrainian refugees come into Donegal and my own county of Mayo as well. They're part of our community. They're working here locally. Their kids are in school. And you see the pushback from local people when there has been attempts to move people. It must be absolutely terrifying to leave your home country to try and resettle into a new community. To be asked to do that a second time or a third time and move around just isn't. We can't do that to children that are fleeing war. We have to look after people, but at the same time we shouldn't create a second problem in terms of damaging our hospitality and tourism industry, because all along the western region, it's a big employer for us in the part of the country where we live. You take away some of the multinationals that we have, the factories we might have in different parts. Outside of that, hospitality and tourism are major employers, and they're paying the bills in many households. So we have to protect that industry that we've spent decades building up. Yeah. And that's why, well in advance, I was saying this back in May, well in advance, we are flagging that for next year, we need to see some sort of plan to try and get at least some of that accommodation back into the system. And I can see in my own part of the country, there are certain individuals in a small number that are speculating on accommodation that ordinarily would become tourist accommodation and would add to our bed stock. But now they're going straight for working with IPAS and working with the Department of Integration because it's so lucrative. Yeah, it's very hard to compete. If you're weighing up your options and you have accommodation, if you're housing refugees, straight away you've got full capacity 24/7. You can plan your staff, you can plan your food orders. It's a much easier business model than trying to, deal with the seasonal tourism that we usually cater for.
And I think it's very useful, Lisa, you speaking out in this, because it's a difficult one. Finally, I won't hold you much longer. It's a difficult one to speak about because say, for instance, a local business owner who's sending staff home because it's quiet. they probably know the person that's running the hotel, or they don't want to be seen to be anti-refugee. So they're probably struggling in silence to some extent, at least public silence. So I think it's useful for the likes of yourself to give them a voice, because I can imagine it's a difficult one. Yourself, you can imagine the small area, and if you start talking about it, it could very easily be turned against you, and you could be cancelled or something along those lines. You know where I'm coming from?
We're in a world now where you could say something, it can be taken up wrong or misinterpreted. But I suppose, I'm in elected politics more than a decade now. People know me pretty well, I think. I try and be balanced and reasonable, and I think people will know from my commentary in the last year I'm clearly not anti-refugee, and I'm very proud of our country for what we've done to help people, and we need to continue to do that. But it's important that these issues that are affecting ordinary people on the ground in the communities that we represent, that we don't leave that to the hard left or the hard right, that the middle ground, the middle ground politicians need to also address these issues. Otherwise we will create problems. So at least, I'm engaging with hotels and restaurants in my own area. Spoken to one hotelier, he just said to me, look, there's bus tours that aren't coming into the region this summer because the hotel accommodation isn't there. And, people might say, oh, what's the big deal about a bus tour? But every single bus that might have 50 people on it, they might spend €50 each in the local area. The tourism, the souvenir shop or the coffee shop, collectively, that's a lot of money to
indeed.
Our region.
I think it's €1 spent in hotels, 3 in the community. I can't remember. I think that's what I read. Okay, Senator, thanks for your time this morning. We'll see how things progress. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Greg.
Bye-bye. Take care. That's Fianna Fáil Senator Lisa Chambers there. Maybe you are in business and you are feeling what Senator Chambers is talking about. Let us know. 086 60 25,000, 086 60 25,000, or call us on 07491 25,000. A caller says, Greg, please warn people to double and triple check the scam messages of, hey mum, I lost my phone, I'm using a friend's, can you transfer me money? I was almost caught sending my son €1,000 this week because we panicked, don't we? Okay, son, what can I do? So just have some sort of system in place where you can double check with a young person. Those texts, they send millions of them out. They only need 3 or 4 people to fall for it, so please be really careful, according to that listener. Greg mentioned about Newtown Cunningham Main Street and that it has many cars needed maintaining, and it's a shame and disgrace, and the council should be ashamed of themselves. Okay, what is that? Is the Main Street in Newtown Cunningham in a bad situation? Is that what the listener's saying? Well done to the Carndonagh traders on a visit to Carndonagh Festival from Thursday to last night from Carndonagh. Okay. There's a cow out in the road between Cranford and Carrigaholt, by the way, so be careful if you're in that area. All right, okay. We are going to take a quick break as we are lining up our next guest. Stay right where you are. We're going to be talking about whether or not we should ban phones in the classrooms.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union. Simplify your debts with a debt consolidation loan from Letterkenny Credit Union. Call us on 074 910 2126 or apply online via our app or in office today.
Do you suffer from high cholesterol, menopause symptoms, digestive issues, anxiety, aches and pains, or a lack of energy? The highly trained team at The Natural Way Letterkenny can provide advice on natural remedies for a number of individual health issues. The Natural Way also has its own brand of herbal treatments to help fight fatigue, relieve digestive discomfort, maintain a healthy immune system, and alleviate common menopause symptoms. The Natural Way at Letterkenny Shopping Centre, your one-stop health shop.
Charlie McClafferty Funeral Directors, serving Letterkenny and the surrounding areas for over 100 years. Charlie McClafferty Funeral Directors. Let our family take care of your family and guide you through a difficult time.
Join me, Marty Friel, every Friday night from 8 for Rockin' Hits on Highland Radio in association with Arena 7, where you can enjoy dinner and drinks in Woodbury Grill, Bar and Restaurant before bowling in Arena 7's state-of-the-art lanes. See arena7.ie.
Experience comfort like never before at half the price in our massive hotel quality mattress sale now on at Better Value Furnishings Moville. Due to overstocking, we must clear hundreds of mattresses at half price. Get your quality mattress at half price and sleep like a king. Better Value Furnishings, Main Street, Moville. See our Facebook for more details.
Okay, so a ban on phones and smart devices at school, thanks to parent power, should be rolled out across the country. It was called for last night. You may have heard in the news over the weekend, Senator Mary Siri Kearney of Fine Gael, who's a spokesperson on children. Senator, good morning to you. Thank you very much for your time.
Hello, good morning.
Now, I'm sure you've polled people around you. You know, we've seen the success in other areas. And, you know, before you float ideas like this, you do your research and you chat to people. I think there's a very little pushback to this, because this in a way makes a caregiver's lives a little bit easier, doesn't it? You know, when something's mandated, it means that it's not our fault. Do you know what I mean? It just makes it slightly easier. So talk to me a little bit about you as to why you've proposed this.
Well, I indeed did poll, and to be sure of this sort of buy-in, because to successfully implement a ban on mobile phones for all primary school children, you need the buy-in of parents, teachers, but you also need to buy in at state level to support that impact, because it's much easier to say, well, sure, I can't, you're not old enough, love. Isn't that an easier way to say it? But it's really important that we get that collaboration, and it's really important for children. And I suppose here's why. Children buried in a mobile phone are missing developmental stages. They're missing that interaction with other children, the play of their imagination, that even the hustle and bustle of the schoolyard or out playing. That's lost when children have a head buried into a mobile phone. So it's not good for themselves. Then on top of that, we obviously have the exposure of bullying and the potential of bullying that has had fatal consequences in many instances, and near misses in others. So it strips away the childhood of children. And so I believe this is part of bringing back childhood, bringing back that protected time of innocence, and that we need to say, you know what, it's not appropriate for children under the age of 13, you know, going into secondary school, anyone prior to that in primary school, they shouldn't have mobile phones. Yeah. And I think that push for one starts at Holy Communion.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll tease that out a little bit, because, you know, as the adults, it's all right going saying we need to do something, or this isn't right, or there's pressure on children, but we actually have to take responsibility and say, all right, well, what can we as a collective group of adults do to help our children? And I think this is sort of one of those things. So what has happened where this has been done on a voluntary basis elsewhere in Ireland? Of course, there are other countries too that have introduced something on a national level. So what are the models out there, and what would you like to see employed here?
Well, from a perspective at home, we've seen in Greystones and in Dingle, we've seen schools implemented with a code of conduct and an agreement, almost a parents' charter that says no one is going to have a mobile phone in this school. That way is very successful, because no child has or hasn't. There's no in-group and out-group. Everybody is exactly the same. They might have it outside of school, but they certainly don't have it in the school where the most peer pressure maybe happens and occurs. In Netherlands last week, we saw that they brought in from a state perspective, they brought in that the use of smart devices was not, other than those that are mandated in the classroom, that they were not permissible now, because they feel that they are a distraction, they undermine concentration and focus on children in secondary school and young people in secondary school. So where it happens and you have that collaborative buy-in, it's very successful and implemented. It doesn't stop the outside of school. So in a way, we need probably to have a national conversation. You know, my daughter goes swimming on a Friday evening. Oftentimes, the parents along the swimming bank all have their heads in a mobile phone. And it may be for good reasons. I know sometimes with my husband, he's catching up on his emails. But there is something of we're losing that connection of watching this stage of development, engaging with our children. So maybe we need to start modelling it ourselves.
Exactly.
And
practice what we preach.
Our own screen time.
Okay. So this seems like there should be a broad buy-in. You've reached out to a few people. Is this a complicated thing to, like, is this a legislative situation? Is it a sort of a national guideline that the schools can say to parents, look, at these are national guidelines? Because I want to talk a little bit about the parents that won't like this as well. But so how would we in this country, if we were to do this on a national basis, what would it look like in terms of, would it be a recommendation? Would it be a mandate? Is it something legislative? I don't know.
Well, I think there are a few elements to that. First, from a school perspective, it would be much easier for schools and parents if there was a circular from the Department of Education. So I think we need to get around a table and have a discussion about that and making sure that that's the right thing, that it's all right. In my view, it is the right thing for us to do, and we need to just go for it. Maybe I've rebelled over, I remember my first mobile phone. It came free with my AA membership. So that's how long ago that was. But as we've grown, our culture has changed. How we our convenience, everything about how we interact in the world has changed, and it's led by social media companies. It's led by, private mobile phone companies selling us all these devices, rather than actually as a society us saying, is this okay? Are we doing this right? I have that band at the bottom of my email that says, if you're opening this outside of a time that you're not working, that's okay. I'm sending it because it's the time that I'm working. So there are a number of societal things that we need to challenge and we need to talk about. I think it's easier if it's led by government. It's easier if it comes from in schools, if it comes from the Department of Education in the form of a circular. Then, in a way, for the parents who don't want to buy in, it's mandated by the department, and for those who do, they have that, I suppose, license to say, well, this is right, I believe in this, and actual fact, it's being supported by the government. I think we can often use mobile phones as pacifiers. You'll see young children at the table out in restaurants and coffee shops, and they have a mobile phone.
That's the only way you can get into the coffee. That's the problem. Is the only way you can get into the coffee shop is to give them the bloody phone. So that's sit at home.
Indeed, but there maybe was a time when we'd give them. No,
we didn't. We stayed at home.
We do all of that.
We stayed at home. No, I do take your point. I do indeed. And I don't think they've got a voice yet, but invariably they will. There's going to be parents and guardians. There's going to be pushback on this. There'll be very good reasons as to why. Maybe it's
Craig, why? Yeah, what are those good reasons?
It could be, I don't know, shared guardianship or something. Do you know what I mean? Or making, I heard that such and such. What if the bus doesn't pick them up? And do you know that? We will hear that, but there comes a point whereby you can't please everyone all of the time. That you have to sort of say, well, what is just the best thing? Because we scrutinise and analyse and argue everything down to the point sometimes where nothing happens at all. We need to start making, I think, what are on the face of it broadly welcome logical decisions. I think we need to have the courage to actually start making those decisions, both as as citizens and as legislators.
Yes, and in a way, if we think about some of the arguments are that supervision, access to children, but actually, are we disempowering their own sense of responsibility and ability to get buses? That we have to micromanage them, know where they are at all times, to that extent. If they're familiar with bus routes, if they're cycling, if something happens, there's always an adult with a phone nearby who would always oblige. That things like that don't happen, that people don't say no in a case of an emergency. So I think there are accessibility. If a message has to be gotten to a child through school, there's the staff office. So I think there are ways we buy into convenience and the easiest way of living our lives, and that's a symptom of
maybe we also need maybe not to be so fearful. We're turning into and it's a wider conversation which I won't bore you with, of course, but just about our resilience, and not only our resilience but our children's resilience and our fear and the comfort it gets from my umbilical cord extending as far as the national school. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes needs to be.
I trained as a counselling psychologist and have read a lot of books, particularly when I became a parent myself. I'm thinking, oh God, I don't want to mess this up. That sometimes you might get hurt, is about the parents' anxiety,
of course,
and not about and actually the message we need to give to children is things like this happen. We will get through this and we will overcome it. So there is something in that in the manner in which we just allow mobile phones. We don't we don't think about it because there's tracking on it. We can contact them all the time. They can contact us all the time. They might need to. But actually, we need to challenge that culture, what we're doing. And you're absolutely right, Greg. You know, you're really.
And children only contact you when they need something anyway. They don't just randomly message. How are you getting on all right? You know, as soon as it beeps. Of course, as soon as it beeps,
the ATM machine.
Yeah,
and taxi.
Can you send me €10? Sod off. Okay, he's only 3. No, I'm only joking. All right, Senator, thanks for your time. We'll see how this progresses. All right, take care of yourself. Senator Mary Siri Kearney there of Fine Gael, spokesperson on children. As I say, on the face of it, it seems like a really logical thing to do, a great equaliser. But as I say, there are people that are probably going to come up with really decent arguments as to why it's not a good move. I don't know. Right, to some of your comments as we head towards news at 10. Having worked for one of the world's biggest hotel brands, says this listener, I'm aware that hotel pricing rates increase as the percentage occupancy increases. So the more rooms are booked, the higher the price of the remaining rooms. So essentially, our hotel prices are being inflated by the permanent residency of refugees in our hotels. This false inflation of pricing is destroying our tourism industry and all of the ancillary businesses it supports. Hotels have become secondary direct provision centres. Another caller says, morning, Greg. To hear Lisa Chambers say that there's almost 100,000 extra people in Ireland is almost unbelievable. Yes, it's affecting tourism, but on a much wider scale, and more alarming is there isn't one extra school place or extra hospital bed or GP. This really can't go on, or can it? I'm not sure about what the impact on schools are. I think quite a few rural schools have appreciated the boost in numbers as it relates to access to GPs and hospital cares. Anecdotally, you hear that there are pressures there, of course, as well, though most of the people here are young and healthy. Can it go on? Have to increase resources, I suppose. Continuing these parades is only continuing the conflict for generations to come by celebrating violence and war, says the listener. Another, Lisa is exactly right, but as usual, they're far too late. They spent millions on Wild Atlantic Way and it was actually working. They've undone all that in the last year or two. Far too much money in housing Ukrainians, some people making all the money from this to the detriment of the tourism industry. But again, if you're in the tourism industry, either inside or outside the hotel element of it, have you noticed maybe it's busier than ever this year, or maybe your business is not quite as busy as it was previously? You don't have to say specifically where you are. We're not looking to cause any angst amongst businesses in local communities, but it would be really interesting to get that insight. I was in Donegal on Saturday. While in a pub, a band came in while en route to Rosnella. There was a lot of singing of loyalist songs and effing the IRA. No one management approached them to ask them to stop. Many people eating and drinking, including ourselves, left as they felt uncomfortable. How is this showing respect? I don't know. I mean, that happens. I'm not defending it, but just on the flip side, I was in a pub a couple of weeks ago and there was chants of Sinn Féin and IRA. You know the song, by the way. I'm not saying it was Sinn Féin supporters, or I'm not getting into any of that, but you know there's a song, Fields of Athenry, I believe it is, and if there was anyone of a different religious background in that place, they probably would have felt uncomfortable too. Good old bigotry and sectarianism is still alive in the north of Ireland. One section of the community have moved on while the other half is stagnated. In 1690, bowler hats, sashes, flutes and drums. Their cohorts want to trample on the Catholic people of Garvey Road, they say. Great to see Donegal showing respect to the Orange Order parade in Rosnella. Pity the same wasn't returned to our Taoiseach in Northern Ireland, says a listener. Is it acceptable that a sitting government minister has a brother sitting on the board of an independent national broadcaster? Surely the public should be made aware of these appointments. I also think that Dee Forbes should not be CEO of GEA Go while she's DG of a business that buys services from the GEA. For instance, she can decide to make a very important match pay-per-view knowing it will generate more money for the GEA. Is it not a conflict of interest? Well, she's no longer a director of GEA Go, but of course, you know, riding two horses, not ideal. We're a small enough country. I suppose if you've got people that get to the top, say two brothers or brothers and sisters or two sisters, there's always potential for a conflict, isn't there, of conflict of interest. I see exactly where you're coming from. I don't know what the solution is. All right, stay where you are. We will be back with more after the news and obituary notices.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union. Digital loans now available. Apply online or via our app today and get your loan transferred directly to your current account.
Do you suffer from high cholesterol, menopause symptoms, digestive issues, anxiety, aches and pains, or a lack of energy? The highly trained team at The Natural Way Letterkenny can provide advice on natural remedies for a number of individual health issues. The Natural Way also has its own brand of herbal treatments to help fight fatigue, relieve digestive discomfort, maintain a healthy immune system, and alleviate common menopause symptoms. The Natural Way at Letterkenny Shopping Centre, your one-stop health shop.
Evolve Clothing, biggest summer sale now on. Evolve Clothing, biggest summer sale now on. Evolve Clothing, biggest summer sale now on at Letterkenny Retail Park or evolveclothing.com.
It's the return of the Big Band Nights at Lokes of Cranford this Tuesday with David James and Band. That's the Big Band Nights kicking off this Tuesday with David James at Lokes of Cranford, where you will also find music in the Wee Bar on Saturdays and old-time dancing on Sundays.
We're having an open event at SEAT. A chance to open our doors and open your minds to the possibilities of our SUV range. With the spacious 7-seater Tarraco, the bold and beautiful Ateca, and the sharply styled Arona, we have something for anyone open to trying something new. And in addition to our incredible July offers, you'll get a free 3-year service plan when you order during our open event. So join us from July 10th to the 17th and we'll greet you open-armed to the SEAT Open event.
Your local SEAT dealer is DMG Motors, Clogher Road, Donegal Town.
Live, on air, online and on the Highland Radio app. This is Highland Radio News.
Good morning, it's Donna Marie Doherty with the news in full at 10 o'clock. The Executive Board of RTE is being stood down from today. The new Director General confirmed the news in an email to his staff this morning. Stephanie Rohan reports.
In his email, Kevin Backhurst says he understands the staff of RTE are deeply upset and angry. He says he plans to be a visible and available Director General, and change will be essential to rebuild trust in public service broadcasting. He says the Executive Board is being stood down today and will be replaced with a temporary interim leadership team. A new permanent leadership team will be announced in due course, which Kevin Backhurst says will be open, transparent and accountable. Their salaries will also be published every year, along with those of the top 10 presenters. The NUJ has welcomed the developments, saying it hopes this marks the beginning of a new beginning at RTE, while Media Minister Catherine Martin says it's time for a reset at the state broadcaster.
A man was assaulted in a house in Derry last night during what is reported to have been an aggravated burglary. The house is located in Grafton Street, with the incident occurring at around 11 p.m. It is believed 2 men forced their way into the property. One was armed with a golf club. The 34-year-old victim was taken to hospital following head injuries he sustained. A body has been recovered in County Mayo following a search for a missing Mexican tourist. The 18-year-old was reported missing on Friday evening after going for a walk on Achill Island. It's reported Sebastian Palmas Sigmund had been holidaying here with his family. Irish Times journalist Ellen Donoghue says a body was recovered following a major search operation over the weekend, which included assistance from the Malin Head Coast Guard.
It started about 5 p.m. on Friday evening when Sebastian Palmas Sigmund went for a walk in the Duach area of Achill Island while on holiday visiting family in Ireland, it's believed, and he wasn't seen after that. And then shortly before 8 p.m. last night, Gardaí issued a statement stating that the body had been found.
An Inishowen councillor is calling for an end to the stalemate in relation to the acquisition of 58 social housing units in Carndonagh. Councillor Albert Doherty said he received calls from many housing applicants after seeing the houses online, open to expression of interest to the general public. He is asking for all stakeholders to remain in negotiations and conclude the deal for the social houses. Councillor Doherty added that there is a risk that Carndonagh is being abandoned.
I am unsure because I haven't had clarity, but what I am sure of is that there's a social housing need in Inishowen. There's a social housing need in the Carndonagh area. We have been badly served by the provision of social housing in programmes. We have been dependent on turnkey developments, and spending on housing is an investment in a community. Not spending or abandoning a development is also abandoning a community. And this community needs social housing, and we need them immediately.
Some direct provision centres are so overcrowded that residents are forced to stand on beds to get dressed, while children have no space to do homework. That's according to the health watchdog HIQA, which is carrying out inspections of accommodation centres across the country. So far, it's examined 3 centres in Kerry and Cork on a pilot basis and found all 3 fell short in meeting national standards. Asking price inflation is slowing, but the supply of homes remains a problem. That's according to a new report. MyHome.ie's property price report for the second quarter of this year shows the annual asking price inflation is running at 2.2%. The median asking price for a property in Donegal is now €200,000. Homes now being sold for only 1% over the listed price versus 5 to 6% 12 months ago. Supply remains an issue with 6,000 fewer listings on the property website compared with pre-pandemic levels. Chief economist with Davy and author of the report, Conal McKilla, says the number of homes being built needs to be ramped up.
The house building market has held up a little bit better than people expected, but still I think the real issue here is that we really should be building 40 or 50,000 houses to start making inroads. That sort of pent-up demand that's there. 30,000 houses this year, better than expected, but certainly not enough.
Looking now to weather. During the afternoon, cloud will increase, bringing scattered showers and outbreaks of rain for the rest of the day. Some heavy or thundery downpours are possible with a risk of spot flooding. Highest temperatures of 17 to 21 degrees in light to moderate southerly or variable breezes. That's all for now. I'll be back again with the news headlines at 11 o'clock. Until then, good morning. The obituary notices this Monday morning, July 10th. The death has taken place of Peter Sweeney Letterkenny and formerly of Drumkeen. Peter will repose at the funeral home Port Road Letterkenny today from 6:30 p.m. until 8:30. Funeral tomorrow at 11 a.m. in St Patrick's Church, Drumkeen, with burial afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. Any inquiries to Con McDade funeral directors. The death has taken place of Anna Ferguson, Ard Clogher Carndunna, and formerly of Glasgow. Anna's remains are reposing at Liam Collins funeral premises, Carndunna, where you are welcome to pay your respects today from 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. and from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m. Anna's funeral mass will take place tomorrow at 11 a.m. in the Sacred Heart Church, Carndunna, followed by burial in the adjoining graveyard. Family flowers only or donations if desired in lieu to the Carndunna Community Hospital Patients Comfort Fund, care of any family member. Anna's funeral can be viewed live on the Carndunna Parish website. The death has taken place of Liam Conwell, 23 Barn Road, Dunnamana, remains reposing at his home. Funeral leaving his home tomorrow morning at 9:20 a.m. for Requiem Mass in St Patrick's Church, Killinay, Dunnamana at 10 o'clock. Interment afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. Family time please from 11 p.m. to 11 a.m. The Requiem Mass can be viewed live via the Donaghedy Parish YouTube channel. The death has taken place of Deirdre Drum-Pierce, Swords, Dublin, and formerly of Strabane, reposing at the family home, 18 Castletown Road, Strabane. Funeral leaving the family home tomorrow at 9:30 for Requiem Mass in St Mary's Church, Melmount at 10 a.m. Interment afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. Donations in lieu of flowers please to St Francis Hospice, care of Quigley Funeral Director, Strabane. Family time please from 10 p.m. to 11 a.m. The Requiem Mass can be viewed live via the parish webcam. The death has occurred of Mary Boner, Balnacurry Doohery, and formerly of Drimnara Creasla. Remains reposing at McGlynn's Funeral Directors, Dunlow. Removal from there this morning at 11:15 a.m, going to St Bridget's Church, Lettermack Award for 12 o'clock Requiem Mass. Interment afterwards in the new cemetery. The death has taken place of Billy McGee Drumore Rafo. Funeral from his sister Lorna's residence at Riverview St Johnston at 1:15 this afternoon, going to St Johnston's Presbyterian Church for service at 2 o'clock. Burial is afterwards in the adjoining churchyard. House private this morning, please. Family flowers only, please. Donations in lieu of flowers if desired to the Donegal Hospice, care of any family member. The death has taken place of Raymond Sweetman, 12 Oakfield Court, Buncrana, formerly Finglas, Dublin. Removal from his residence at 9:20 a.m, going to St Mary's Oratory, Buncrana for 10 o'clock Requiem Mass. Burial is afterwards in Cockhill Cemetery. Family only on the morning of the funeral. Family flowers only. Donations in lieu to Cree Heart and Stroke Charity and Say Aphasia, care of any family member or McLaughlin and McLaughlin's funeral directors. The death has taken place of Jimmy O'Donovan, 27 Ballyduff Park, Lifford, and formerly of Athlone. Remains are reposing at his home. Funeral leaving his home this morning at 10:15 for Requiem Mass in St Patrick's Church, Murlog, Lifford at 11 a.m. Interment afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. The Requiem Mass can be viewed live via the parish webcam. For more details, including any family health guidelines for wakes and funerals, please go to highlandradio.com.
Like lower prices on everyday essentials? Then make Aldi top of your shopping list. Essentially, Aldi have lower prices on, well, the essentials, including Brannan's 16-pack Irish sausages was $1.49, now only $1.35. Savoury crackers was $1.29, now only $1.15. Four Seasons peach slices was 99¢, now only 85¢. And Almat super concentrated laundry liquid 42 washes was $2.69, now only $2.39. You won't just like more value, you'll love it.
All right, you're welcome back to the programme. Good morning if you just switching on. Right, a caller says phones should be banned in classrooms and this should extend to the teachers too. My 10-year-old says his teacher gives them work to do and then sits on her phone for 10 minutes at a time. Yeah, well, it has to be across the board, doesn't it? Is RTE just the tip of the iceberg of the government? Over 100 years of nepotism in government and its various national and local agencies. Sadly, Ireland needs a root and branch audit. A review of RTE, HSE, Justice, Social Services. The list is never-ending of the potential incompetence and corruption that awaits us in this rotten can of worms. Our school got over 50 new students and they didn't get a single extra penny to support these students because they had moved from another county. The allocation of support for them had already been given and we will receive no support until 2024. There is a huge language barrier and support is greatly needed. We really cannot just be given 50 plus students with no supports. And we had this conversation previously a long time ago about how you integrate new students into the school, how you help them by bringing their English on if that is an issue, but also how you incorporate them without it damaging or impacting on other students' education. So I'm not sure if we've resolved that yet. You hand your phone in to the teacher in the Philippine schools. You get it back in the evening when school's over. Simple and probably just the norm and no one thinks about it. It's just what's done. Hi, Greg. Would have to agree with your last caller. The price of hotels in Donegal. Was looking to take my wife away for 2 nights for our anniversary, the last bank holiday passed. I rang 3 popular hotels in Donegal. One was looking for €628 for 2 nights, another €850, and the third €1,300 for 2 nights. Ended up going to Spain for the week for €800, all inclusive. And that's what my friends are all doing now. You couldn't holiday in Ireland with the price of hotels, they believe. Do you have a flip side to that story, though, by the way? Have you had a recent staycation? People don't like that word. It can be quite triggering. But, you know, if you, so far, some of you will have already maybe taken a break away. Did you do it? Was it relatively cheap? Let us know. 086 60 25,000. Just your recommendations to counter the claim that it's very expensive to holiday here. I think what people do is, I wouldn't like to stay in a hotel for very long, to be honest with you, especially with young children. It's just not really, I don't think, in a very comfortable environment. I think, you could possibly go and stay in a house somewhere for a week for, it can be quite expensive, but maybe $800 to $900 if it's 2 families. Does it become affordable or more affordable then? As I say, I would you'd have to be a lovely hotel to want to spend any more than a couple of nights there, wouldn't it? Or would it? Maybe you go away and stay in hotels. It's each to their own, I suppose. Stand Up People against the forced licence for RTE, which hardly anyone watches. People Power got rid of water charges. Greg, I'm coming to the conclusion that legally right and morally right are so far apart. It means that if it's legally okay, it can override something that's morally wrong. I think that's kind of almost par for the course, is it? Greg, absolutely galling to watch Niamh Smith and Moya Doherty of the Oversight Board. It was like two girls that were old friends. Tubbs and NK shall be so well prepared and get an easy ride. They may have done nothing wrong, only arrogance. Should have paid the money straight back. Now, never, ever be a presenter anywhere. That comes in from Oisin. Ryan Tubridy might end up working successfully here, or maybe there's options for him abroad. I think no matter how well prepared they are tomorrow, there's a lot of questions, and it was quite an interesting line of questioning. I heard someone from RTE questioning someone who will be questioning Ryan Tubridy, and they were almost giving them the questions as to what they expect to be asked, and there's no easy answers to some of these questions. It's going to be a tough show for them tomorrow. Will you be watching it? I think even those that are, I think the news channel is going to have record viewership figures tomorrow anyway. Drip pay the TV licence $1 per year because they drip feed us information. Okay. I wonder, will there be an investigation into the squandering of public money during the COVID pandemic? Crazy amount gone. Where? Who benefited? Well, that's another argument. Some would say lives were saved. Others would say lives were cost. And it might take some time separation between then and when there's some level of consensus there. Okay, it's another week of bingo. If you're playing, good luck. Have your numbers out. You have your pen out. Well, here are the numbers for you. Good luck if you are playing today.
It's time for NCBI Bingo on Highland Radio.
It's Monday, July 10th. You're playing on a green coloured sheet. The reference number is S16. It's game number 28. The numbers are 34, 62, the number 6, 41, 74, 35, 82, 71, 51 and 85. Phone your claim to 9104833 before 8 p.m. tonight. Leave in your name, contact number and the name of the shop where you purchased your book. Get all your NCBI Radio Bingo information at highlandradio.com.
Do you need a little extra help staying in your home? At Bluebird Care, we offer a wide variety of QMark-approved personalised home care services across Donegal. And our fully trained and committed staff will always meet your care needs with kindness, compassion and dignity. To get your personal home care assessment plan, visit bluebirdcare.ie or call our care team today on 07491 29562 and bring care home.
Wedding suits packages are now 20% off. Just book your wedding suits before August 31st and get a whopping 20% off. Don't stand still. Evolve. Letterkenny Retail Park. Terms and conditions apply.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union. Now offering mortgages from €40,000 to €600,000 with no hidden fees or transaction charges. Letterkenny Credit Union. 9102127.
Okay, our next conversation is not unrelated to a conversation we had in our first hour where we heard from a Fine Gael senator for a ban on mobile phones in national schools. It's been trialled elsewhere, or it's been done voluntarily elsewhere, and it's been mandated in other countries. And it is one byproduct of that would be hopefully to reduce bullying, but not eliminate it, because of course bullying comes in all different forms. Bethany O'Riordan's a psychotherapist and founder of the Calm Parenting Club and joins us now. Thank you so much for your time today.
That's all right. Thanks for having me. Hello.
Yeah, good to have you. I mean, this is not, we're going to talk about why we invited you on, but just a commentary from you. I mean, would you welcome the removal of mobile phones from national schools? I mean, you'd imagine it would have to have a positive impact on children's well-being.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the minute screens are removed, kids go back to playing and being creative and having to communicate with each other in sort of, I was going to say old-fashioned ways, but it's not really.
Yeah.
They just have to get back to getting on and talking with each other, which is something very helpful.
Yeah, it's an unnatural way that's sort of pushing the natural way of us. We're social creatures, aren't we?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I had kids at my house. So I'm a mum of 3, and I had kids at my house for a sleepover. So there was 3 kids over. And Saturday morning, everyone got up, they did their games, they did their technology for a bit, and then I took all the technology away, and they all looked at me like, what on earth are you doing? My kids were mortified. And then they just went and played. They got out the board games, they played Twister, they laughed, they ran around, and it was amazing. You know, it was rather than sitting in silence or...
And that all instantly instantly naturally came to them. I mean, I'm not saying they'd never done it before, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So in terms of I've said this before in this program. Obviously, we've covered bullying in the past, and I've talked about bullying in schools before. And then you get phone calls from people well advanced in their lives, 40s, 50s, and 60s, and still what happened to them as they were children has stayed with them, but also affected their relationships and how they interact with other people. I mean, talk to me a little bit about that, about the impact bullying can have on people and its lasting impacts potentially.
Oh, I think it's huge. But like in the therapy world, what we would say is it's not only the thing that happened to the child that really dictates so much of their future, but it's if they're alone with it. So much of the time, parents can, and I get it, I'm a parent, can kind of go into a flap and a frenzy and feel really panicked themselves, because obviously there is nothing more hurtful to a parent than the thought of their child being hurt. But the thing that really helps children the most is when children don't feel alone in their pain. So they say that trauma is when a child feels alone with what's going on for them. So even though there can be policies and strategies from schools, it's for the parents to really connect with the children and help them through it. And what children, so I work a lot with teenagers, and they say the worst thing is when they see the panic on their parents' face. Now, as I said, I'm a parent. It's not that we're not meant to feel panic, we are, but we're meant to know how to contain it so it doesn't spill into the lives of our children. So children have more of an ability to overcome a bullying scenario with the right support and help from the adults around them.
Yeah, and there's all, as we say, there's all different types of it. I was speaking recently to a parent whose young person, there was no physical abuse, there was no nicknames or nothing, but they were actively being excluded from things. So in and of itself, that is a form of bullying. Bullying's kind of a catch-all, but things like that can be really difficult. And then you can really struggle as a parent. You can't go around to people and say, play with my child, do you know what I mean? Then you start questioning about your own child's socialising or whatever, so there's different forms, and it generally causes a great deal of stress, and people wonder, well, how can I sort this out? I don't want to see this extension of me in such a horrible, vulnerable place.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you were talking, and it made me think, there was a party in one of my kids' classes recently, and one of my children, I won't be naming names, was one of 3 children who wasn't invited.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I get it. You can't invite 15 or 12 people to a party all the time. Realistically, if we're a bunch of adults, right, say there's 28 children in the classroom. I know there's more and I know there's less. But would I get on with 28 people and want to invite all of them to my birthday party? I don't know. So what is the line around inviting people, not inviting people? Is it excluding, or are we teaching children, you don't have to get on with everybody. You have to be nice to everybody. But, you're allowed to have relationships with a few people without excluding others. And I think it's all about the parents having a really open dialogue. I think especially parties are really tricky. And like you say, there are excluding people, I think is really awful. And I also think, though, it's about supporting the child who is being excluded to create their own friends then. Well, if that group don't want to play with you, let's figure out why. Is there a reason or is there not a reason? And let's focus on your other friends then. You know?
Well, I mean, that's really constructive and a pathway out. And I want to tease that out with you, but it's about having the open lines of communication with your child, and how do you have those conversations? Because a child will, same as an adult, will bottle things up. Their behaviour might change. They just seem different, and they could be carrying this scenario with them, but don't feel they can talk about it. So, I suppose this is from any age really, where that you can communicate with the child. How do you best have those lines of communication open so that they feel they can come home and say such and such is happening? Because it's far better, presumably, to try and deal with these things or to help your child at the earliest possible juncture.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's really important for kids to know that everyone might not like them. And that's really hard. You know, even as an adult, do I like that people don't like me? Well, it certainly is difficult to swallow all the time, isn't it? So I think the thing that's really important is if, say, when a child comes home, if the parents can be available, right? So that means you're off your phone. I mean, lots of us work from home, so it's not that you have to quit your job and be available 24/7, but it's that you're available at the times that the child needs you to be available at. So that you can see, okay, when they've come in the door, play detective. Is their behaviour different? Is there something about them that I can't quite put my finger on? And then what parents have to do, and I think this is a bit where loads of parents get really scared, and I always say, yeah, it's normal to be scared, but you can also be proactive, is try and kind of make a really good guess at what you think is going on. You don't have to get it right, and you're not putting thoughts in your child's head. But what children do is children pick up on what's being unspoken anyway, and it comes out through their behaviours. So if you can say something like, hey, were you left out in the playground today? How is it that you didn't get invited to the party? Or, we haven't had anyone over for a while. You've not been invited anywhere for a while. Shall we do something? If you can try and name the thing that's really hard, then that helps to take the sting off it. And it's almost like kind of releasing the pull on a ring can. It kind of like, it kind of releases the pressure around.
Or even
it.
maybe a sheet of paper with, if they're able to read a sheet of paper with some of the things you suspect it might be, and see if there's anything relevant that they can point to on it, or something might be a way of... How important is our reaction? Because, we always presume that everything's great with us, right? And we're perfectly equipped to deal with everything that's happening with our children, but mums and dads and guardians and caregivers are stressed themselves. Maybe they're anxious. Maybe they'll go into panic mode. Oh, is there something wrong with my child at school? And next thing, they're actually more, it's their reaction and not the helping of the child thing, or they might take every word that comes out of the child's mouth as an absolute fact and go into school in a rage or something. You know what I mean? So how important is it that the big people process it properly, take a few deep breaths and, sort of say, right, calmly as much as it can be possible, what's the best approach? How do I deal with this?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. So children learn about life, about managing their emotions from the parents. We say that the family is the training ground for life. So, I mean, the overall arching thing about bullying is how do you cope with a problem in life, I guess. And that's really simplifying it and kind of funneling it down to one sentence. And we want children to know that, yeah, things are really hard, but you can get through it. And the role of a parent is to kind of almost in some way be quite impartial to what's going on and observe with the child, oh, so that's going on for you. And of course, we do that with loads of love and we do it with loads of care, but we don't want to drop into the feeling of it with the child, because emotional regulation is all about the child plugging into the parent and parents preparing themselves to support the child. So the child needs our strength, it needs our authority, it needs our listening ears, and it needs us to know that the child needs us to know that whatever happens in life, we're going to support them through it. And that doesn't happen if we turn into a puddle on the floor in front of them.
Okay, that's one way of putting it, all right. Now, our conversation earlier about banning phones from national schools, the reason that's even a topic now is because many of us, and I'm a parent that is very typical, right? Nothing's perfect, okay? But too many of us say no, or don't say no, sorry, or find it difficult to say no, or say no, you're not taking that to school with you today. You're leaving it in the bedroom and you can have an hour when you get home. Like, we've had issues here, sorry. I've been contacted personally by even parents of young teenagers that want teen discos banned, because it's easier if they were banned than it would be for them to say, no, you're not going, because, you know, the teen says, well, my friends are going and all this kind of stuff. But anyway, going back to the younger children, we have a tough line to walk, do we? Or have we figured it out in terms of our children having resilience and learning and knowing the realities of life and what is mistreatment or bullying, or what is, this is going to come at you hard when you're in secondary school or when you're an adult. You know, they have to learn the realities of life through. We are not going to get every child through growing up perfectly protected from everything, completely insulated, and nor should we necessarily want to. Are we struggling to find that balance between giving our children, having resilience ourselves and for our children, but also protecting them from obvious wrongs? Convoluted question, but hopefully you can make something from it.
Yeah, I mean, I think life is really hard. I was saying it to my mum. I said, Mum, do you know, it's actually really hard to keep kids. Everything is so available now. You know, when I was younger, if I missed an episode of Grange Hill, it wasn't on catch up. I didn't get to record it. I had to ask my friend what happened in school the next day. But now everything is so available to children. You know, everything is so instant. You know, I remember sitting beside my, I don't know what you call it now, my like ghetto blaster, waiting to push the play and pause button to record a Green Day song when it came on or something. Now you just go to Spotify
and then the DJ started talking out over the start of it and the end of it too, because they figured out what you were at.
Yeah, exactly. And so I feel that for parents now to keep our kids' feet on the ground is so important. And I'm a mom. I know it is easier sometimes to give my child a screen because they will be quiet for the hour, the half hour, however long it is. But in parenting, always the right thing to do is often the hardest thing to do. And you mentioned resilience. So resilience is the act of overcoming something. So children need to hear the word no. I mean, no is the word that you will hear the most in life. No, you didn't get the job. You didn't get the exam.
You didn't win the lottery.
Yeah, the saddest one of all. You didn't win the lottery. Yeah. You know, so, and in fact, when your child is there and they're really upset, and the parents say in the Calm Parenting Club, they cried for over an hour. I say, well, that's how upset they were. But this is really good because they're doing it within the safety of the relationship with you. And that is the thing that makes that feeling safe.
Yeah, okay. And parents need to give themselves a break too. There's no handbook, there's no rule book. We're not prepared for it. There's no licenses, there's no learner permits, there's no testing. Yeah. You know, you just do your best as you can, and you make mistakes along the way, and you don't beat yourself up for it, but you try and learn from it. Okay. I think so. Talk, the Calm Parenting Club, can people get more information on that, or?
Yeah, go to my website and have a look. So it's my online parenting community where there's myself and a play therapist, and we're there to guide you through life as it unfolds. It takes place in my app, so you can ask me questions whenever you need to, and I'm there to help you, support you through the ups and downs. And it's for parents of kids and teenagers of all abilities, and it's waitlist free. I really want parents to know that you don't have to wait to get support. So.
All right, thanks for your time today and your insights. Take care of yourself. That is Bethany O'Riordan, psychotherapist and founder of the Calm Parenting Club. 086 60 25 000. WhatsApps and texts to that number, or give us a call too if you wish on 07491 25 000.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com. The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, offering low-rate holiday loans with fast approval. Apply online at letterkennycu.ie or in office today.
The new Corolla Hybrid Electric range is here, and the Corolla Cross SUV is the latest addition to the iconic family. Spacious and beautifully designed, it's perfect for growing families everywhere. And it's available to order now at Kelly's Toyota Letterkenny and Mount Charles. With exceptional electric drive time and no plugging in, the next generation is ready to take over. See the new Corolla Cross today at Kelly's Toyota Letterkenny and Mount Charles. Toyota, built for a better world. Terms and conditions apply.
Are you tired of working from home with constant distractions? Don't let the summer chaos hinder your productivity. Join G-Tech Digital Hub today. Say goodbye to the house full of people and hello to working on your own terms. G-Tech Digital Hub, Termon and Carrigart. Call 07491 54291 to secure your spot.
Rejuvenate your skincare routine this summer with the Clarins Big Beauty Gift at McElhenny's. Purchase 2 or more Clarins products, one to be moisturiser or serum, and receive a choice of 3 free travel size products. Purchase a third Clarins product and receive 2 makeup essentials. Offer available in store at McElhenny's and online at mcelhennys.com until July 16th, while stocks last.
2 gig full fibre broadband from Virgin Media has landed in Donegal. Hear that, Aoife? Huh? Time to lose yourself in the latest Scandi crime series.
I have no idea what's going on here.
You should really put on the subtitles.
Fair point.
Whatever your genre, whatever way you play, Virgin Media is here. Switch today at virginmedia.ie. Virgin Media, it's playtime.
Subject to location and availability.
Okay, so a theme of today's programme, more by accident than design, is about parenting. A mother has offered her son €2,000 to stay off booze until he's 18 because she's worried about teenage drinking. Journalist Mary McCarthy started drinking before she became an adult, and her experience has influenced how she parents her son. Mary joins us now. Hi, Mary. Good morning to you.
Hi, Greg. Thanks for having me on.
Is that framed I'm not sure if you wrote this yourself or someone wrote it on your behalf. Is that framed correctly for you?
That is exactly on the button. So I look back, my son now is nearly 15, and that's the age I started drinking. So I've been thinking about it a lot, and I'm horrified, Greg, at how and also how lucky we were that I didn't get into any major scrapes. I did end up in hospital getting my stomach pumped after stealing some whiskey from my parents and drinking a lot of it. And I'm just hyper aware that today it's even a bit more riskier, teenagers drinking with phones. And then there's drugs. I mean, there were no drugs around when I was, this is going back now, I'm 46. Anyway, long story short, I decided to offer him €2,000 if he didn't touch alcohol until he was 18, and he agreed. He was delighted.
Now, some would say brilliant. If it works for you, that's fantastic. Others would say it's a bit of a cop-out, isn't it, Mary, to be trying to bribe him. But is it, if we dig into it a bit more, it's not simply about the money, though. I suppose it actually maybe empowers him a little bit. I think people might read this and go, well, this is about Mary and her peace of mind. But to some extent, I suppose it empowers the young person and gives them an alternative and an incentive. Is that the motivation behind it?
Exactly, Greg. That is what it is. I remember when I was growing up, you would hear these urban myths of people, none of my direct friends, but you'd hear of people whose parents had offered them a car or money, and they kind of used it as a crutch. It was an excuse, So I want him to know, A, that we expect him not to drink, like that's what we expect. B, I would love if he was able to be honest, and I don't mind if his friends are going to bars, if he goes to bars but he doesn't drink and he just tells me, But also, I just think, yeah, as you say, it is an extra incentive for him, A, to get the money, but B, he's got kind of an alibi. He's able to say, well, look, I don't want to drink, fellas, because, every incident that he might drink is a potential loss of €2,000. It's never going to be worth it, right? Like, there's never going to be a night or a party that it's worth it.
Yeah, and it's not a collective period of time from 15 to 18. It's a series of individual events, isn't it, really,
exactly.
Potentially?
Yeah, that's it. And all the research, Greg, like there's so much research on this that shows that parents who are more open to giving their adolescents alcohol or letting them drink a certain amount, like they're 4 times more likely to fall into kind of harmful patterns later on with their drinking. So people think and I don't want to insult anyone who's decided to do this, and I do have friends and family who have done this, but they think that if they let their 16-year-old have a beer with them, and they kind of think, oh, this is the mature thing to do, we're teaching them how to drink. But I would say, why would you teach your child to use a drug? Like, you wouldn't give them a cigarette after dinner, so why would you introduce them to the world of drinking before they're 18? And if this monetary incentive, if it, it is a lot of money, and there is a bribery element there, but I feel that it's important that they don't drink, and I'll do anything to.
Yeah, and how? I mean, where's the trust here? Is this in some sort of a middle account that he has access to when he's 18? Like, are you good for it, Mary? No, the line's broken down a little bit. Can you hear me now, Mary? Can you?
Yeah, I mean, there is an element of trust there.
It's not an escrow account or something.
I can hear you. Yeah, can you hear me? I might have to move room. I might have to wander into another room. Can you hear me, Greg?
Yeah, go ahead. I know there's a slight delay, so I was asking you that's about a trust situation here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there will be a trust, and I just want to keep. Well, I think he knows. I mean, you can tell when someone's been drinking, right? And he knows that we'll be able. It's also being involved in their lives and knowing where they are. Not saying, okay, you can go off and do a sleepover for 2 nights with so and so, and I'm not going to be in touch with your friend's parents. I'm going to be in touch, and I'm going to be not in a controlling way, but just to be. I think parents, they actually have quite a big role, and sometimes parents can think, oh well, they've got to 16, 17, they don't need me breathing down their neck, but you kind of do, So there is a level of trust, but he knows that he'll be caught, if he does drink. And to be honest, Greg, he's mad into his kind of body, but he just wants to bulk up, and he's like, well, drinking is bad for my body, I don't want to do it. It's like the 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, they're very different breeds. I think you might be a bit younger than me, but they're a different breed to what we were. I had no idea I was smoking age 15, drinking. They know now their body is our temple. They want protein smoothies, not bottles of Budweiser, So I think that there will be trust there, and I think that I'm confident anyway. I hope,
I mean, you got this idea from friends. What has been the reaction to you going public on this? Everyone's got an opinion nowadays, and some people are going to think it's a cop-out, or that, this, that and the other. I mean, I'm more of an each to their own type person, to be honest with you. But what has been the feedback you've received so far?
Some of it's been really good, and actually a lot of the parents have got in touch to say that they have done something similar. They've offered them a holiday or a car, and it has worked. And then there's people who have been quite hostile to it, and I kind of feel maybe they're a bit defensive because they haven't decided to do this. So they feel, and there is always that risk with opinion writing. You are always potentially, you're insulting a lot of people if you come out with an opinion, because I'm saying I don't think it's right, and by inference they feel, well, you're saying I'm not a good parent. So I have got quite a few hostile reactions as well, with people saying, I don't think you're right, and I think my son can have a beer with me and he's not going to go mental. But as you say, everyone to their own. But I mean, the research says it, and you can't really argue with the research and the health professionals. It'd be very difficult to get a health professional to tell you that it's a good idea to supervise your teenage drinking. I've tried to do it. I tried to get the counter argument, and I could not get it. Nobody would come out and say it. In fact, it astounded me how many health professionals didn't actually drink themselves. So I kind of feel there's a kind of societal thing there that it's the parents are really they're very much against vaping and cannabis and cigarettes, but alcohol is something that is accepted, right?
Yeah, but it is a little bit like banning the mobile phones, you see. It's a little bit like it. It's because we do it ourselves, you see. So we're talking about stopping other people doing, and then does that mean then eventually they're going to come from us? And I think there's a subconscious sort of thing going on there. But finally, Mary, so he'll have 15, 16, 17, 18 to see maybe friends of his that did have a few drinks and felt bad the next day or did something a bit silly. Do you think in a way that he might sort of turn 18 and not go to the bar and have, 3 or 4 pints and say that, you know what, actually, I've done all right up until now, not drinking. Maybe I'll just choose not to drink as an adult?
Maybe. I mean, who knows? I mean, or he could go the other way and just not know how to handle his booze. And I hope that doesn't happen. Like, Greg, what I try and do is I try and role model. So I remember interviewing a liver specialist a couple of years ago for an article, and he said the one advice he gives is to people is to make every drink count. So if you meet a friend and you have a gin and tonic, like that first one is really means something. You know, you sit down, you haven't seen each other for ages, you have a good chat, but the 4 or 5 after that mean nothing really. You don't need them. So what I try and do is I try and, well, not to kind of look like I'm gasping for a drink, but just to make every drink count. Like, I'll enjoy a drink, but I maybe won't order another one. I'll order like a mint tea or something. So I would, like, my dream would be, and like, unfortunately now I do actually have 4 kids, and the youngest one now wants $6,000, would you believe it or not? He's a very wily little 6-year-old. So he was saying, I'm going to do it for 6, man. So I would love if my kids could drink mindfully. And I know that's mindfully is a buzzword, but it does mean something when it comes to alcohol. It's to enjoy it in very small doses, because, you know, I think we've just become habituated to drinking large amounts, and we think that's normal, and actually it's harmful, you know. All
right, okay. It's been interesting speaking to you. Thanks for your time today. Have a lovely day.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks for having me on.
Take care of yourself. Mary McCarthy, who is a journalist. She's paying her child, or has agreed with her 14, 15-year-old that if he stays off alcohol till he's 18, he's going to be €2,000 richer. As I say, it's not for everyone, and an awful lot of people wouldn't have access to the $2,000 to be able to make that barter. But what do you think? As I say, I'm more genuinely each to their own. If it works for them, if they've got the money and it's beneficial, that's grand. Would I do it? Don't know. I have to think about it. Maybe I'll think about it during this ad break. But I can understand why someone might. But then I can understand why others might say, well, it's just throwing your hands up and saying, I can't influence them without sort of the financial incentive. I don't know. What do you think? 086 60 25,000 is the WhatsApp or text number. If you're outside the Republic, 00353 86 60 25,000.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, offering low-rate car loans with fast approval. Apply online at letterkennycu.ie or in office today.
Summer reductions on your favourite brands at Brian McCormick Sports, Brooks and Asics with 20% off. Check in-store and online. Brooks Glycerine and Adrenaline 22 GTS save 20%. Asics Keanu 29, Asics GT 2011 save 20%. Get ready for the summer and save 20% off your favourite kids' Asics trainers. Look the part, play the part. In-store and online. Click and collect on bmcsports.ie.
At Heron Auto Opel, we're a full type of people, which is how we come up with the Opel 50/50 finance offer. Choose from the Opel Crossland, Corsa or Mokka. Select your flexible payment option, pair it with 3 years free servicing, and meet your new other half. Discover more about Opel's 50/50 offer at the Opel Open Road event. See heronopel.ie for details. Finance is provided by way of a consumer hire purchase agreement by Bank of Ireland Finance. Lending criteria and conditions apply over 18s only. Ownership remains with Bank of Ireland until the final payment is made. Bank of Ireland trading as of Bank of Ireland Finance is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Bingo every Monday night at the Halfway House Burnfoot. Doors open 7:30 with ice down at 8:30. €2,500 must go. Snowball is now €1,050 on 45 numbers or less. If you're not in, you can't win. That's Halfway House Bingo tonight at 8:30.
For the biggest names in perfume and aftershaves, visit McGee's Chemist Letterkenny. Dolce & Gabbana, Paco Rabanne, Carolina Herrera, Calvin Klein, Jimmy Choo and Burberry, Ariana Grande, Jean-Paul Gaultier, Vera Wang and many more. From timeless classics to celebrity favourites, there's a perfume or aftershave for everyone at McGee's Chemist Letterkenny and online at mcgees.ie.
Okay, Patrick is going to join us a little later on. We're going to say good morning now to Kevin. Kevin, how are you getting on?
Not so bad, Greg.
Thanks for joining us, Kevin. Now, you have noticed something at, is it the Go self-service fuel stations? These are the ones where you insert your card, you prepay, then you fill up. You don't necessarily know exactly how much you're going to fill up, and then you drive off. Now, if you put in €80 and you fill 65, the idea being that you're charged €65, not the 80. What's your experience been, Kevin?
Well, twice there over the weekend, Greg, I had to go to one of the self-service stations there. And I put in €20 each time. But I just see my account this morning is down to the tune of €250.
Wowzers. How could it be
for the
so
two
much?
transactions? Well, I spoke to both the bank and I spoke to the crowd that runs the service station. And the bank's saying it's a pre-authorization, but they haven't got, they don't pre-authorize it. They just take the 40 out.
Mm.
The company's saying that it's Visa and MasterCard that put the pre-authorization, and it will drop off, but it could take 3 or 4 working days for it to drop off, Greg.
Yeah. No,
Now,
you'll get the money back.
Luckily, I have. You do, but if you had somebody there that say, like, yes, had to put €10 of petrol or diesel into their car, next thing they have a direct debit come out this morning for rent or something, or a phone bill or something like that, and they find out they're down €125 for a €10 purchase. That sounds a wee bit strange.
So, Kevin, when you pulled in to get fuel, do you know how you put the card in and then it tells you how much you're going to pump?
Yeah.
What button did you press? Did you press the 20?
No, you don't get that option on the station I was on. You just put the card in, and you put your PIN in, and it approves, and then it tells you to start fueling the car.
Oh,
so
okay.
you fuel the car, whatever, and then you press for a receipt. You see, that's what I don't understand. The other system that you're talking about, where you put in your card and up it comes, do you want petrol or diesel? Petrol, much do you want? €20, and you press go, and then it tells you if your car's declined or not.
Right, so with this company, then they automatically check for €125. Then obviously
they automatically withdraw that out of your account. Now, where it's sitting, this is the one. I don't know where that actual €105 sitting. It's not with the bank, and it's not with the company. So they're saying it's with Visa or MasterCard.
It's a pending payment. It's a pending payment.
It's a pending payment until yes. So there are 2 of them at the weekend there. It's not to say it used to be a penny, but there are 2 at the weekend there, and now the 2 of them have dropped off. So this morning, I'm sitting with €210 out of my account, so it's gone.
Yeah, which would be enough. Which would be enough to bounce a direct debit potentially, depending on not in your situation, but and even though that money is returned, then it could be Monday afternoon, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yes.
You've already encountered the problems. I wonder, is it a particular thing for the weekends? Because the way for some reason
it doesn't matter, Greg, when it's for, really.
Okay.
It doesn't matter because I'm sitting at 10 or 11 o'clock this morning. It still hasn't been returned.
Right. Okay.
So. It's just something that people need to be aware of, It's a funny one. I wouldn't mind even one, but there's something way more, and something that people would just need to be very aware of when they're using certain self-service stations.
Yes.
Now, the ones that bring you up the transaction and petrol or diesel and you put your amount on that, they're all 100% because you're immediately, your card either declines or is accepted, so your purchase is the same as tapping it or using your card in the machine.
Yeah.
But this way here, I personally will not be using the Pector station ever again until that system changes. And I've been a fairly good customer of theirs.
Yeah, I think it's useful. I think it's useful feedback. I don't think it's a problem for the company. I think it's useful feedback. They can say, all right, this is an issue. Because before they would just check it's a real card. And as you say, a nominal fee just to make sure, right, this is an active card. But now they're seemingly, at least at one of the stations, they're pre-authorizing €125, which is a pending payment. It's not taken from you, but it's a pending payment, which has that effect on your bottom line. Okay.
Well, it is actually taken from you. It's taken from your money and your bank,
and then returned.
Greg, so it is actually taken from you and then returned. Yeah, it is taken away. So it is. So for €10 of petrol, maybe some person looking, just to put a lot of petrol over the weekend, they could potentially be down €125.
All right, listen, Kevin, thanks for your time. I appreciate it. Take care of yourself. Now, we spoke to the company and the bank. Was it we that spoke to them, Caroline? That we spoke to the company? Okay. Well, anyway, our information is that the bank says it's different rules for different companies, and in terms of pre-authorization, some drop it right away, some takes a few working days. So, as I say, it's just to be careful if you are operating. And the money is there's no money taken from you that it shouldn't be as such. It's a pre-authorization, but for some people in some cards in a particular couple of stations, you can find yourself down that 125 per transaction. Now, for many people, you might put €100 of diesel in, I don't know, but you could find yourself without access to that money for a day or two till it's refunded to you. Okay, just worth keeping an eye on there. Just as it relates to the banning of smartphones, a caller says it's too late as virtual reality and screen time is now replacing natural human interaction. Communication can go into any home, TV, phone, video games are the way of life now. Go to a pub, younger generation, texting and on social media in groups together but apart. Intervention is needed. And yes, let's start in schools, plus educating parents of dangers of too much screen time and the benefits of real play and engagement. It's hard to know where we are going because we have billionaires, who see a different world for us. Be it Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk, they are the main players, particularly Zuckerberg. He is incredibly influential. They see metaverses, blended reality as the future, and they've got billions upon billions upon billions of euro to make us believe that way. Elon Musk, he's got his own ethos. He can throw 44 billion euro at Twitter and no great shakes. He can afford to take that risk, but he also has a plan, and both of them are seen as heroes by those that support them, but really they're doing their own thing to their own ends. That really, is it really about the user? Quite interesting. That new, if you're interested in your social media, Threads, the new app from Meta, it's connected to Instagram. It's not available in the EU at the moment. You can easily download it if you want to. It's not hard to do with a VPN, which a lot of people use a VPN anyway. You just say you're in London, download it, and that's it. And it's quite interesting. It's not a toxic place. It's much more, and people might not like it. There's obviously more censorship, but there's not as much sort of toxicity or kind of the stuff you see on Twitter anymore. And I think that's going to work very much in its favour. They've already had 100, brilliant. Caroline's saying we're discussing it tomorrow. They've already had in excess of 100 million downloads of the app, which is remarkable in 4 days. But as I say, it is, if you want social media where it is just sort of cats and people saying nice things and a bit of commentary on sport and stuff, it's nice for that. You open Twitter and everyone's saying names of who's the BBC personality and this person over here, I don't agree with them and I hate you, and just everything it's kind of negative is all there on the Twitter timeline. And they've got this other thread space where it's kind of back to the way Twitter used to be, where it's all rosy in the garden. That's not for everyone, but I think it's going to do really well. It already has. It is a proper rival to Twitter now. Others have tried Blue Sky and Mastodon and others, but they never had the critical mass access that Meta have, and they have created something that is genuinely going to be a rival to Twitter. So it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out. If you're in any way interested in social media, if you're not, well, then I've just been talking extra nonsense for the last 2 or 3 minutes. Caller says, imagine the party when you turn 18 and have €2,000 to spend. It's very difficult for parents. Teaching them to drink has to be a big no-no. Thank God to be old and have 40-something children. Okay, you don't have to worry about it. Okay. I totally agree with Mary. I never agreed with this policy of introducing drink to under 18s, and I know many parents do this, not judging, but it never felt right to me. I gave my daughter an incentive to stay off alcohol until she was 18, and thankfully it worked. I highly recommend all sports to make them more aware of their health and fitness. So it's not like someone from the suburbs or something with this notion that no one else has ever done. We've a listener here who incentivized her child, her daughter, or his daughter, not to drink till they're 18, and it worked for them as well. Is it something you might try? Greg, I was in a pub recently and I noticed a lot of people, including some young, drinking Guinness Zero and other beers. This was good to see because some young people may never want to drink, but it's not cool to ask for a Coke or 7-Up if your friends are on pints. So your pint of Guinness Zero looks and almost tastes as good indeed. I don't think alcohol is particularly nice, tastes particularly nice, really. And I don't know. Like it's good to see, and I think the sales of 0.0s have quadrupled. So it is something that people are adapting to. But I would prefer if I wasn't drinking a bottle of Coke full of ice and a slice of lemon or something. But each to their own. Ryan Tubridy paid his agent Noel Kelly to do a job to get the best deal for Ryan. What RTE did then to make up the paycheck is up to RTE. Now Ryan and Noel are the baddies in all of this. For Noel doing his job, RTE have answers why they went around the bush in making up the payments to Ryan. Indeed, that is a point of view. Greg, I was in Go Fuels on Saturday, got €40 of diesel. It was the same thing, €125 payment taken. It was returned this morning, though, but for some, the direct debit could come out overnight and it could be a problem. So hopefully it's something the company has a look at, because they're great services, but if people, and it's handy for people, and you can get your diesel or petrol whenever you like, but especially at the moment, that 125 could really genuinely be the difference between a payment going through or not.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, with monster loans available up to €60,000 for all occasions. Visit letterkennycu.ie.
Buddy the Musical is back at the Millennium Forum from Tuesday 8th till Saturday 12th of August. Don't miss this multi-award-winning West End and Broadway smash hit musical. This is a show you'll never forget. Come and join the party. It's just Peggy Superb. Call the ticket hotline on 02871 264455 or visit millenniumforum.co.uk.
The one you've been waiting for. The McElhinney's summer sale is now on, with up to 40% off across almost all departments and massive savings across your favourite brands. Don't miss out on amazing offers. Shop in store at McElhinney's Ballybuffet or online at mcelhinney's.com.
The Lennon Festival Remelton comes to a close tonight, Monday. But before that, there's lots of family fun throughout the afternoon, including pet show and fancy dress. Then later at 8, it's the closing ceremony and fireworks display with live music from Paul McCall and guests. All happening today, Monday, at the Lennon Festival Remelton.
Check this. On this week's DL Debate, County Captain Niamh McLaughlin joins me as Donegal ladies look forward to a home tie with Dublin in the All-Ireland quarter-finals. We also reflect on the county season just past, the highs and the lows, and the presence of Glen Swilly's Gary McDade and Kilcare's Michael Higgity. That's the DL Debate just after the 7pm news this Monday and podcasted on highlandradio.com.
The DL Debate with Sister Sarah's Letterkenny, serving food you'll love in Sarah's Kitchen. And there's free admission entertainment every weekend.
Brendan will be joining us in the next few minutes to preview the DL Debate and look back at the weekend's GAA action. That and so much more besides in the next hour. But it is 11 o'clock, so that means it's time for a news update. And it is good morning to Donna Marie Doherty.
Thanks, Greg. Good morning. The Milford Draft Town Centre First has entered its second stage of public consultation. Drafted in line with new national policy and feedback from the first stage of public consultation earlier this year, it hopes to strengthen the role, image, vibrancy, vitality and resilience of Milford Town Centre. Full details on how you can submit feedback is available on our website highlandradio.com. One of the young white-tailed eagles found dead in County Antrim 2 months ago had crossed South Donegal 2 weeks prior. The two birds were poisoned after consuming insecticide. PSNI are investigating the circumstances of how the illegal killing occurred. A man in Derry sustained head injuries following an aggravated burglary. The incident occurred in a house located on Grafton Street at around 11 p.m. It's believed 2 men forced their way onto the property, one armed with a golf club. A body has been recovered in County Mayo following the search for a missing Mexican tourist, following a major search operation over the weekend, which included the Malin Head Coast Guard. The 18-year-old was reported missing on Friday evening after going for a walk on Achill Island. It's reported Sebastian Palma Sigmund had been holidaying there with his family. Some direct provision centres are so overcrowded that residents are forced to stand on beds to get dressed, while children have no space to do homework. That's according to the health watchdog HICWA, which is carrying out inspections of accommodation centres across the country. So far, it's examined 3 centres in Kerry and Cork on a pilot basis and found all 3 fell short of meeting national standards. And finally, asking price inflation is slowing, but the supply of homes remain a problem. That's according to a new report. MyHome.ie's property price report for the second quarter of this year shows the annual asking price inflation is running at 2.2%. The median asking price for a property in Donegal is now €200,000. That's all for now. We'll be back with more at 12 o'clock. Until then, good morning.
All right, Donna Marie, thank you very much indeed.
The Bear. New season streaming soon exclusively on Disney+.
Opening a restaurant.
The award-winning kitchen drama is back.
We need like a reset. I'm trying to start from a place of positivity.
It's out of the frying pan and into the fire.
Gotta control the zone.
Don't freak out and go calling for mom.
Season 2 is about to be served.
Clock is ticking.
How's that not making you insane? Yeah, shit. I don't mind it.
The Bear. New season streaming soon exclusively on Disney+. 18+ subscription required. T's and C's apply.
Okay, you're very welcome back to the 9 till noon show. Thanks for all your calls and comments coming in, by the way. 086 60 25,000 WhatsApps and texts. Keep them coming. Or call us on 074 91 25,000. Right, 7 o'clock this evening, the DL Debate. DL Debate is available for you to listen to. Scheduled just after 7 on the radio and available for you to podcast or download and listen at your leisure. Maybe you're out for a walk tomorrow morning. You want to save it up for that. Brendan Devaney's the presenter of the DL Debate. Hi, Bren.
Hiya, Greg.
How was your weekend?
Very good, yeah.
Did you do anything nice?
I was out in a wee boat in Goodore just there.
You love it out there, don't you?
That's it. I get the fishing rod soon and a wee hat. I'll be sitting sleeping there. Drift out to sea. Nobody will miss me.
Brilliant. You enjoyed it though. Good.
It was good. It was good fun. Yeah. Listen.
I was saying earlier on, like if you'd looked at the weather forecast, you'd have done nothing at the weekend, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And then it turned out it was beautiful. I saw one shower.
Yeah.
And Saturday and Sunday, lovely, calm sea conditions as well.
Yeah. Listen, I just think with the weather here, you just roll with it. You know.
Yeah.
See if it's raining there. I go down, hop off the pier, and way down Mahargallen.
Right.
And sure, whatever. It's just a wee bit of thing with the kids there, keeping them entertained.
Yeah.
And you know, when it goes past a certain phasing on the device or on the, you're like, right, let's get out and do something. But yeah, we had a lovely day down at the beach yesterday. So feeling fresh today. You know, ready for the week, ready for the DL Debate.
Yeah, that's it, boy. Right, okay. Big game to look forward to. It is the All Ireland Ladies quarter final. We talked about it last week. Donegal v Dublin. You've Niamh McLaughlin in to chat about that.
Listen. I would, looking at her career, what a player she is. Like, she is an absolute star. And, you know, you talk about being ballers. She is one of the best out there. The way she plays, you know, her intelligence on the ball and how she contributes even to scoring. She's in a phenomenal season. She's captain. And, you know, I was looking back. She's obviously an ex-soccer star. She's played by Ireland as well and been across the water and that. She's had come through injuries. She's an absolute leader, Greg. And as I'm looking at him, we want to talk about Dublin and about this season and that. But I mean, what a story she has. Would love at some stage to have a proper talk with her about her career. But as it stands now, they're getting ready for an All-Ireland quarter-final, which we didn't think was possible. You know, I interviewed Maxie Kern, her manager, what must have been, 6 weeks ago after a heavy defeat to Armagh up in Lifford, and the whole season was about to go down to Swanee, and they've completely turned it around. I mean,
how do we set our expectations going into this game, Brandon?
Yeah, well, listen, we
want to enjoy it because it's a huge game against Dublin, deep into the biggest competition. So you want to get up for it and get excited and hope we can do it and all that kind of stuff. But as you say, we kind of find ourselves in a position that you would never have dreamt you might have been in a few short months ago.
Yeah, it's probably a very important time, because with the experienced players coming back in, the young players have found their feet in the league, and even though there's a couple of tough defeats in that, they've come into the championship and it hasn't bored them. And now when the numbers have come back, Donegal now are a force again. But how long is this the last hurrah from the girls? You know, so it might be a very important time now. Obviously, them young girls coming through are full of talent, but it might take a while then for them to adjust. So it is probably a very important championship in terms of. This could be the last one for a few of them, because we're surprised even a few came back. So I know there's a bit of an injury worry in Geraldine McLaughlin, so hopefully she makes it as well. So listen,
there's been fantastic advances in women's sport. You know, it went through a trailblazing. So there's a generation of ladies footballers that blazed a trail, but they're maybe coming towards their end of the career. And I noticed this in boxing as well. Particularly with the Katie Taylor, and there's a whole group of about 12 or 14 other women that are all now in the mid to late 30s. And it's just on the boxing side of things, you don't see where the next crop are coming through. So what you're seeing is matches where someone's had 2 fights and it's a world title. That's not good for any sport. I'm just wondering, in terms of the massive acceleration in women's football, is there a cliff edge here, or are the players coming through to maintain the expectations and the standards that we've sort of come to take for granted?
Yeah, but the players are definitely coming through. Greg, you just have, when you have a team like Donegal that's as good, that's been at the top of knocking on the door of an All-Ireland continually, there's obviously going to be a bit of a change in there. I mean, we see it with every team that has been very talented. It's how you manage that and how you take it through. And then
the transition.
Different stars, but I mean, to have Niamh in there, of course, you mentioned the acceleration of the ladies' game. She's obviously a GPA rep as well, in terms of all that's happening there at the minute, but the girls looking for proper expenses and parity with the men in terms of how they're looked after, which is very important, because people say then about the money that's brought in and how much money that takes in that, but we got to pull up the ladies' game as much as we can. So if these girls are given as much as the men, then they have to get the same expenses and same help with pitches and
support
training
and respect.
Yeah,
I love it stand to respect. Going to be a really interesting conversation too. You're joined by Gary McDade and Michael Hegarty, reflecting on the Donegal GAA 2023 men inter-county team. I presume we'll take up quite a bit of that, but not exclusively. That's going to be an interesting conversation.
Some talking points there.
I mean,
there wouldn't be a year ever where there was as many talking points as last year. Having Matt Gary in and Gary knows his Donegal football inside out, and of course Michael Hegarty. I just think with Michael, sometimes with Donegal, with such a big county, there tends to be sometimes a different mindset maybe from the north to the south.
100%.
You would see that a lot.
Yeah. So
having Michael on just is that thing of balance, because there was a lot of talk, of different things happening, particularly when the protracted management saga came in, and there was reasons for that, you see, Greg, and it's very important, and we're going to highlight them tonight, how this all fit into place, how it came about that Paddy Carr and Aidan O'Rourke was Donegal manager, and in the background, what happened in the Rory Kavanagh, Carl Lacey, Jim McGuinness situation and that. So I want to just spell that all out to people, because sometimes those wires with rumours and that all got crossed.
Yep.
So there was a certain way that all happened, and then they obviously backed off, and then in the end the players asked Paddy Carr to step down. So it's important we talk about that, just to see what happened in terms of the last process, because we're going into a new one now, and it's very important.
Were you surprised, or any reaction to Michael Murphy saying the job's too soon for him, ruling himself out early, which I think is helpful if he's not interested in it? I think he's got a lot going on, obviously, with the stuff he's doing and the bit of media work as well. Believes he's got more to learn.
He's always got a lot going on. It's more what he's turning down, I would imagine, everybody. Yeah. I don't bother him now, Greg, because a very odd time I might text him or ring him for a word, but sure, he's doing really well with GAA there, and so he's got the business, and he's involved with ATU, and he's Glenswilly
Minor as well.
So I listen, there's no doubt that man's going to at some stage take Donegal, but I think for him, it would be a bit of a jump to jump in now. Like, I think he needs to.
That shows
take his time.
Good sense too, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so, because the easy thing to do would take the job straight away. I think himself, he probably wants to look about and maybe, get involved with somebody else for a while, because it's, he's obviously gained so much experience. He'll have his own way of doing it. I think obviously his coach along with him will be very important, but I'm sure from that 2012 team, if you think about it, we just mentioned Carl Lacey and Rory Kavanagh and that. I mean, if you had them all involved, I mean, you can imagine how the young Donegal squad would
a lot of people seem to sort of, without necessarily saying it directly, and it normally goes around to talented people who are working with other counties and all. There seems to be a sense of what people want for next year.
Yeah. Listen, we there's not, the candidates are all really from that 2012 team, if you look at it. And I know the last time, Conley Gilligan was approached from Derry as well. He's got relations in Ballinshire there, for example. So the nominations are to come in. You have then a process where the county board can also go and approach people. So last year, Paddy Carr was nominated by Fanad, and SB Barrett was nominated by Milford. So they were the two nominations. So whenever it came then to Paddy Carr, Donegal went out looking for a coach because he was a manager. So they were kind of put together, if you like. So, of course, in the end, that didn't work out. So it just remains to be seen, do the clubs put up anybody, or do the county board are obviously out. Listen, Malachi O'Rourke, of course, was met a couple of times, not as an official interview, but he was met. He was the number one target, but he ruled himself out as well. So you have obviously proximity to the county. Like, there's only so many people can travel a certain distance.
Yeah, true. And do you think with the albeit disappointing end to the season, but the uptick, the attitude and commitment to some of the senior players, the more experienced players, and the young talent that's there, and maybe with a little bit more overview or oversight of how the GAA is running this county, this sort of ongoing. Have we got to a point now where people will look at this job favourably, rather than there was a period of time where you would sort of say, well, you wouldn't touch that with the barge pole, right? Have we moved through that a little bit, or are we moving through that a little bit to make it more of a, actually, you know what? It's a big county, brilliant support base, decent crop of players. I can go in there and do something.
Yeah, that's an important point. What the players did, and you'd have to say fair play to Aidan O'Rourke and Paddy as well, in that group phase and taking us into that quarter-final. I know that didn't work well with Tyrone, but you've seen enough of a young talent, even with all the players not available. People stepped away, retired, but all the injuries we had, and injuries to some of our key men even got in, and we still managed to be competitive. So, it did the heart good, Greg, to see all these young boys coming through and start to become a team again. And particularly the performance against Monaghan was phenomenal. I mean, Monaghan getting ready for an All-Ireland semi-final, we completely turned them over. And that was a team missing so much, Greg. So I think that made the job much more attractive, And the academy's up and running. I mean, under 15s and 16s played at the weekend there, played Dublin and Monaghan and that. I think there's about 10 or 11 coaches back at the minute. Now, from that review, the review that happened, there's a committee set up to get the coaches all back in. So hopefully the academy gets fully up and running and coached again the way it was. But you're right, Greg, there's an enormous amount of talent out there now, which wouldn't have been seen only for maybe all the turmoil. So if you're a new manager coming in and you get all the players back and get the players fit, we certainly have a very talented squad going into the next season.
And coming in, do you want a 3-5 year deal, would you, or 3?
You talking to me now?
No, you're
Do you want me to rule myself out?
No,
nobody's asked me.
I'm sure you could form.
We could talk.
Do you know what we'll do too? Stick you in defence, so you can be the defensive coach.
Right. I was great at tackling me. No, listen. No, Greg, listen.
But you want someone to come in with the sort of not year by year, say, right, I need 3 years here.
Yeah, 3 would be certainly. And listen, you could review it after 3 with a possible 5. I think because of the age range of that team, it's so young now, that you're gonna build it up. You're gonna be, if you have a good coach and management, and it's gonna keep going up and up. So I think, it's important to get the time.
That would require managed expectations and patience for fans as well. We all want everything instantly. Okay, so the DL debates are cracking. Eve McLaughlin in. You've got Michael Hegarty on, Gary McDade, Brendan, of course, himself. And also, you can listen to it live just after the 7 p.m. news today. It's also podcast then to listen at your leisure on highlandradio.com. And it's brought to you in association with Sarah's Kitchen at Sister Sarah's Letterkenny. Brendan, I'll let you get on with it.
Greg.
Thanks so much for your time. All right, back with more after these.
The county's #1 talk show, The 9 till Noon Show on Highland Radio.
The 9 till Noon Show with Letterkenny Credit Union. Simplify your debts with a debt consolidation loan from Letterkenny Credit Union. Call us on 074 910 2126 or apply online via our app or in office today.
Hi folks, Paul McDevitt here, inviting you to join myself and Jimmy Stafford this Monday night for another edition of the Monday Night Sessions. On the show this week, we are delighted to welcome local up-and-coming rock band The Fades. We'll also be playing you brand new music from around the Northwest and the rest of the country, and keeping you up to date all things that are happening musically in the Northwest. So, that's the Monday Night Sessions this Monday night between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. right here on Highland Radio.
Do you need a little extra help staying in your home? At Bluebird Care, we offer a wide variety of QMark-approved personalised home care services across Donegal. And our fully trained and committed staff will always meet your care needs with kindness, compassion and dignity. To get your personal home care assessment plan, visit bluebirdcare.ie or call our care team today on 07491 29562 and bring care home.
Donegal's premier summer event, Errigal Arts Festival, brings you fantastic events for all ages and all backgrounds. This July 8th to 23rd. Enjoy award-winning music, theatre, circus, visual and street arts, in person from the offshore islands and the West Donegal Giltuct to the lowlands of East Donegal and the shores of the Inishowen Peninsula. Visit eaf.ie for full details on Errigal Arts Festival, proudly supported by Donegal County Council.
Highland Radio time checks with Expressway. Travel Route 32 from Letterkenny to Dublin when you book online and travel for less. Expressway, bringing you the time at...
Okay, the time is 11:17. Now, the Church of Ireland, Diocese of Derry and Raphoe, has appointed its first female dean, and our Monday focus is talking to that person, given that honour, Reverend Liz Fitzgerald. And Reverend Liz, thanks so much for joining us.
Hello and good morning.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling after a wet, dreary run up from Omagh here about my appointment. I'm very pleased.
Yes.
I'm very excited about it.
And how important is it that you're the first female dean for this diocese? Is that, in terms of significance, does that rank quite low down? Or is it quite significant?
It wouldn't even occur to me.
Yes,
that I was appointed because I was female.
Yeah.
I feel in every walk of life we should be appointed to a position because we're the right person, right time, right place. And I feel that's my circumstance.
I kind of suspected that, hence how I phrased the question. Talk to me about your early life. Do you always an interest in religion, or?
I would have been brought up in a church family. Like every one of my age group, we all went to church, we went to mass, we were brought up by our parents and our grandparents to be churchgoers. My father was brought up in the rectory in Coal Island, so my grandfather was a rector. My great-grandfather and his uncle were both rectors as well, so that side of church life was very normal to us. It wasn't something set aside as something different. It was very normal. Whenever I was growing up, there were no females ordained. And I felt my vocation was in the healthcare services. So I spent 30 plus years as a physiotherapist.
And is that where you felt you had to go, or did you consider, well, I would like to do that, but there's no other females that have done that?
No, it never ever occurred to me. As far as I was concerned, my vocation was in the caring professions. Yes. Nursing, fabulous career. Physiotherapy, social work, were the three things I was interested in, and I would have ended up in children's work anyway. I worked as a paediatric physio for 25 years, which is quite different because you're not just treating aches and pains. I was listening to your last person who was on, who's promoting sort of the sports and looking at sports things. But paediatric physio is very different because you're caring for the children, yes, but the family, you're working with schools, with healthcare services. So I enjoyed all of that very, very much. And
the interaction with the people was the part that, I mean, obviously you're there to try and make people better.
You try to make people better, but also
more to it.
Oh, very much so, because whenever you've a child or a young person with a long-term problem, you work with the family. It's very pastoral as well as very practical. So really, it's no great surprise that I slowly drifted into church work more and more and more. In the Church of Ireland, we have positions called parish readers who assist in morning worship, diocesan readers who are lay, who are licensed to preach, but not ordained sacraments. And so I did those two roles, and then... Was
that for how long alongside your already very busy life? So how, like your 30-year career in a health service, at what point were you doing both, or was it for the whole time?
Well, if you think that's busy, I'm also a Merchant Navy wife. Right. So we will soon be married 40 years, and I think we've lived together for about 15 of them.
It's the recipe to success.
It's a recipe to success. So yes, what did you ask me?
Did you have a family as well?
I have one child.
Right, so
we have. Sorry, my husband gets so annoyed. He's not mine. He's ours. I have one baby. Baby's 31 years old.
So all through then, so you've got your career in the health service. You're a mum.
Yeah.
Because of your husband's career, you spend quite a bit of time on your own.
Yeah.
Really, really busy. But it flies, doesn't it?
It flies.
And you manage
it was organised. I mean, obviously at the very beginning, I was very keen on nursing, and somebody somewhere guided me. It was God guided me into physiotherapy. It was amazing because I could not have coped without that 9 to 5, Monday to Friday routine that falls into schoolwork and all the rest. I was a foster mum for 4 years as well, and again, my Monday to Friday work and my boys. I just loved. I loved it all. It's life's experiences, which I hopefully bring into my ministry life.
Yes. And you talked about the guidance. Can I just move this slightly, if you don't mind? You talked about, I know it kind of blocks us, but you talked about, no, that's terrible. I want to be able to see you.
That's quite all right.
You talk about you being guided by God. Are you aware of that through your career, or is that on reflection?
I would say both. There would be times when I would have stopped and I would have paused and I would have waited for just encouragement within. I mean, some of the cases I would have worked with would have been very emotionally draining.
Yes.
And I feel that I would have had God's support to get myself going and to continue in my work. But he's always been there. Mm-hmm. He's always there for all of us if we would just stop, pause, reflect, and he is there. And again, I was listening to your previous person who was out on a boat at the weekend in Gweedore. I'm heading to Lough Erne for a fortnight, and we need peace. We need quiet. We need space so we can find ourselves and find God in our lives.
I think some people fear that, though. They fear that what might fill the vacuum. I suppose, if you have a faith, it's going to be that, but others try and keep themselves busy. We have this notion that we have to be busy to be happy almost, or we have to always be on the go.
I feel we're too busy. I think we're too busy. My favourite spots would be on the water, beside the sea, and up the hillside. And there's so many of my girlfriends that are only happy if they're out busy lunching, and that's very important as well. Mm-hmm. Lunching and shopping and all the rest, but we need quiet. We need peace.
I mean,
and we're not wasting our time by doing nothing. We're actually helping to sort of restore ourselves.
Mm-hmm. I mean, not as much now as perhaps it should be, but if you go back a couple of 100 years, the what you talk of, the fields, the hills, the landscape were more intertwined with religion, weren't they?
Yes, they possibly were, but we need to move with the times and where people are and what people are doing. Faith isn't a static thing. Faith moves with our life experiences. I think which is probably why I was in my 50s when I was ordained, because our faith experiences and how we want to express it and how we want to use it changes.
Yeah, and just by coincidence, last week we were speaking to Father Sean Doherty, former presenter here, who at the age of 42, 43, left, just says, right, I'm leaving here. And his pathway to his ordination was 6 years of study, some time of reflection, and over to Rome, and now he's an ordained priest. And it's funny in that a lot of what he did in his life, as he was saying himself, present a show like this, listening to people and all that type of stuff, as he thinks it's going to make him a better priest because he's more mature and has learnt that type of stuff. That's his pathway. What is yours? How did it work for you in terms of how, your career versus your, up until you become Reverend Liz Fitzgerald? What has to happen, or what happened for you?
I'm going to almost repeat Father Sean's journey. I was in my 40s and I went to college. They opened the opportunity to study part-time. In Church of Ireland, we study 3 years postgraduate. And I was able to do it 6 years part-time. So like Father Sean, I did 6 years. And I was ordained at the age of 56 into as a deacon. I spent 2 years in Donamana. And then I was priested and I went to beautiful Gweedore. And yes, it's interesting when you actually finally stop your daytime job to move elsewhere. It's, and you do, as Father Sean said, you do bring a different experience with you. Whenever I worked as a physiotherapist, I would have had student physios out with me.
Yes.
I loved that. And they just qualified. They had young ideas. They had a good brain for sort of interpreting information in papers. And I had the experience. And I feel here too, I enjoy working with people of all age groups and all experiences because we all have something special to offer. But like Father Sean, I feel I have a different starting point.
Yeah.
Because I have had those 30 years. I've also had 30 years as a wife and a mother and running a busy household. So you do have a different reflection on life and life experiences.
And also too, you've got your husband and your son presumably to say, look, this is what I'm going to do. Did any of that come as a surprise to them?
Well, my son just says, "Oh, Mom's a holy roller," and we just get on with it. My husband has always been very supportive. His late father was one of 6, and as in every good Cork family, there was a priest, a teacher, a nun, and a secretary, businessman. So faith ran, and religious orders wouldn't have been unusual in Sean's family. He's now retired. He retired a year ago. He had a very, very busy year in Rotary Ireland. You know of Rotary, they've got a very strong club in Letterkenny here. And so he's now finished that. So I have space.
How does your workload change, from your previous career to now? I mean, you
From physio to now, or from cure to where I'm going?
No, from your 30 years in healthcare in all its different guises and forms compared to now. I mean, there's a lot of work for you to do.
There is. It's very different because in the healthcare services, everything is so confidential, everything is so time orientated. This is your time with this patient. You write up the notes, you file them, you put them away. You don't finish with your parishioners.
No.
You carry them with you. The joy and the strength and the encouragement from some of them, the sorrows and the needs from others, you carry with you all the time. I don't find it burdensome by any means. I find it a pleasure and a privilege that people do bring me into their confidence.
And it's funny you should say that too, because I can't remember if it was on the radio. I can't remember if it was off the radio or a conversation. It might have been on the radio, but it's a great honour if you're able for it. It is to be able to offer comfort to people at the time of need, to offer counsel, just to be there, to be their friend. I mean, it is a great gift to have if you can deal with everything else that goes along with it. I mean, it's incredibly burdensome too at times, but you're well conditioned to perhaps deal with that.
Well, this sounds strange. I've always kept dogs, and you say burdensome. So, I mean, people can certainly say whatever they wish. I take my dogs up the hillside.
That's it for you.
To the sea. And they're coming to Lochern with us for a week. We need some way of chilling. And it's actually biblical because Jesus went up the hillside to pray. And I think more of us need to go up the hillside and even just sit and empty all our woes and our troubles.
Either literally or metaphorically, I suppose. Preferably
both.
literally if you can.
Both, very, very much so.
So you are, where would you be based? What is your role now?
I will be rector of 3 parishes. And it's the parishes of Clonlee, Raymochy and Rafo. And usually the rector of a cathedral would carry the title and the honour of dean. The dean bit I hadn't actually expected.
Bonus.
It does happen occasionally that somebody from within the diocese holds that, but normally it is the dean. I'm up for it. I'm ready to go. I won't actually probably move into that position until, I was hoping end of September, but it could be October.
And what do you, can you set yourself goals or what you want to do or achieve, or Like, what would you like your, hopefully in many years to come, that you to have done for the church or for the parish, or you know, what would you like to make inroads in, or is it simply to be there for people, which is incredibly important?
First and foremost, it is to be there. There is a huge ministry of presence. I want young people to understand that going to church and expressing your faith is not fuddy. It is very, very important. I mean, young people go out, they love one another, they support one another, and that again is biblical. That is church. And so come and reinforce your faith with one another. And I would love to see more young people expressing themselves through their faith, which is in there. It's in each and every one of us. A wee bit of God is in each and every one of us. And if they could find it and share it, that would be a wonderful, wonderful thing.
And that would show true independence and, you know, thinking for oneself. I think that's all good if people try and do that, you know.
Absolutely.
People claim to do it, but they don't necessarily actually really do it. They kind of, you know, I think it's good if people assert themselves, think for themselves, you know, stand by their principles, their morals, their religion, whatever it might be. And
I think it has to be a we. I mean, faith is very much a collective thing. It's not, people say they're spiritual, but really they need to be collective to share that spirituality. Yes. And that little bit of spirit, as I say, is the Holy Spirit within each and every one of us. And we need the collective. We need to, it's like if you have one burning coal sitting on the fireplace, it'll die. If you put many coals in on top of it, that glow will spread. And that's how the love of God will spread, through people being together, worshipping together, living together, talking together, having coffee together. It's the togetherness that I believe is so important.
Well, what do you think are the greatest challenges facing the church at the moment? Is it engagement with younger people, you know, a new generation of churchgoers? Is that the greatest challenge, or maybe it's not even a challenge? I don't know.
I think not the greatest challenge. One of the challenges is there are a large number of young people who've never been to church. They don't understand church, and I would love them to have the confidence just to saunter in the back and even sit for 10 minutes and see whether they can engage with the liturgy and engage with the whole ethos and the feeling that God is here with us. That's a challenge. That's a challenge.
Okay. And
there are also people of my age and older that have fallen away.
Yeah.
And I often wonder, you know, just come back. You don't have to go back to your own church. You could go to Mass where nobody will know you. You can go to a church service where nobody will know you, and you can go and sort of just experience that.
Yeah, and it's not always maybe a loss of faith or anything. Like, I mean, I would know people who went to Mass every single week, and then COVID happened, and then they stopped going, and then they didn't go back. It was for no particular reason. It wasn't that they pray any less or they're any less, but it's just sometimes they got out of the habit of it. It wasn't the thing anymore. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes it's not like a big massive crisis. It's just simply someone's out of the habit of doing something.
And as a very wise bishop once said to me, he said, it's easy to fall into bad habits, but you have to work at getting into good habits. And that's where we need our encouragers to help us to get back into good habits.
Loads of kind wishes and messages coming in for you. Best wishes and every blessing to Reverend Liz in her new role as Dean. Thank you for your kindness and ministry. That's from Father John Joe Duffy.
Oh, Father John Joe, thank you very much.
Okay. So I thought I'd pick that one out. And we wish you the best of everything. And I think you're going to make a great reverend. It's clear, you know, with the way you come across and what you want to do and achieve. And congratulations to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for your time this morning.
No, it's our pleasure, and hopefully we shall talk again in the not too distant future. That is Reverend Liz Fitzgerald. Back with more shortly.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook, and at highlandradio.com. The 9 till Noon Show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union. Digital loans now available. Apply online or via our app today and get your loan transferred directly to your current account.
PDO Thread Lifts, the ultimate non-surgical lift for the skin, improving facial contours, lifting and tightening jowls, the neck, cheeks and eyebrows, are available at Genesis Aesthetics and Skincare Clinic Udor. For help choosing the right aesthetic treatment for you, contact Mary Ferry, your aesthetic practitioner. Also offering fat-dissolving treatments, dermal fillers and laser treatments for all skin conditions. Hair and makeup packages also available. Genesis Aesthetics and Skincare Clinic Udor, 07495 325 75.
A public interest message from Donegal County Council. Become a museum detective at Donegal County Museum. Search for clues and discover more about the history of Donegal with the Museum Detective's Backpack. The backpack is free to borrow when you visit the museum and contains a series of activities for children of all ages to do. There are artefacts to find, stories to create and puzzles to solve. Donegal County Museum is located on the High Road in Letterkenny and admission is free. Telephone 074 912 4613. Email museum@donegalcoco.ie or find us on Facebook. Donegal County Council, supporting our communities and protecting our heritage.
Hip and knee pain can be debilitating. That's why at Kingsbridge Private Hospital, our orthopaedic surgeons offer a range of hip and knee surgeries and are ready to help get you back to doing what you love fast. Why wait? Find out more about our health insurance partners and cross-border healthcare options at kingsbridgeprivatehospital.com today.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union, now offering mortgages from €40,000 to €600,000 with no hidden fees or transaction charges. Letterkenny Credit Union, 9102127. Beat your personal best with top brands and premium running footwear from Michael Murphy Sports in Letterkenny. There's new arrivals from Asics, New Balance, Brooks, Adidas and Under Armour in a range of structured and neutral styles. There's also free next day delivery on orders over €85 at michaelmurphysports.ie.
While on his lunch break at work, Sean switched to 48 Mobile. He got all data, calls and texts for the limited time offer of $6.50. That made him feel like he scored a goal. Yes! So he celebrated by pulling his shirt up over his head and knee sliding across his boss's desk. Good call, Sean. 48 Mobile. Good call. Subject to fair usage. $12.99 a month after the first 3 months. $6.50 one-time activation fee. See 48.ie.
Charlie Boyle is a customer experience consultant and is with us on the programme now. Charlie, good morning to you. Great to see you.
Good morning, Greg. How are you?
Good. I've been reading your words on and around, well, not specifically, but specifically to some extent about what's going on in RTE and the great challenge that's facing the incoming Director General. Before we dig into that, with such a huge organisation, almost 2,000 staff in the position that it's in, and you know the conversation about licence fee and how it's funding and people's wages, is it a ship that can be turned around in your experience? You know, given the scale of it and the attention that's on it at the moment.
Oh, look, everything can be turned around, and it's probably in the national interest that it is. You know, I think this last 3 weeks has been good, probably in highlighting what's gone wrong, but there's still a lot of questions to be asked as to how it got so wrong, you know, and, you know, the standing down of the board today is probably good news to most people, but a lot of questions have to be asked as to why this wasn't called a lot sooner than it was, because I think we all were aware that RTE was seen, you know, there was ad hoc sort of information 10, 15 years ago that the culture, the internal satisfaction, the employee experience was not good inside. And the politicians that are sitting on the Public Accounts Committee in the last couple of weeks are seasoned politicians. They also would have known that. But what I think is incredulous is that there was no measurement of that internal experience. So there is no employee experience measurement at RTE. And we're living in 2023 where the employee experience in any organisation, and a state or a semi-state body is no different, must be and should be measured. And that would have highlighted so many of the issues that, you know, we're hearing in the last few days. It becomes nearly entertainment, Greg, that, you know, it's about flip-flops or a borrowed Renault car for 5 years. And I think it does the whole organisation a disservice that that's the highlight, because it's not the highlight. The highlight is much deeper than that.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting how you're extending out the levels of responsibility, and I agree with you fully. No more so than the executive saying that we were told everything was okay, and then the board saying the executive told us everything is okay, and we scrutinise that. But who's scrutinising the members of the Oireachtas committees who were saying, well, you came in here and told us everything was okay? These conversations were happening in the public all the time. Every time the wages were published, it was going on. You know, we knew there was disquiet amongst the lower paid workers who were asked to take pay cuts, whilst still, whether or not they took a pay cut, there was a tier of people earning hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands. So these questions should have been teased out long before now by those that oversee all of it. Do you believe that's the case?
Yeah, of course, the question should have been asked, but the evidence should have been there to back that up. So the basis of anything, and I suppose in terms of customer experience, where that is in the last 10 years, the research would support very, very strongly that the experience of the end user, in our case, the license holder, you and I are license holders, and you know, we're the end user, and all of us, as are all the people who are viewers to RTE. And that's only a replication of how things are deep down in the organisation, that organisation of 2,000 people. And again, I go back to the point, there hasn't been a measurement of the employee satisfaction, the employee experience. And if there was a simple measurement, the simple measurement could be something like a Net Promoter Score question, which asks on a scale of 1 to 10, how satisfied are you working with the organisation? You give the score. The second part of that question is, why did you give that score? So it's both quantitative, you've got a number, and it's qualitative, you've got loads and loads of comments. That's the information that should have been presented and should have been asked by the Oireachtas committee members, not how are things going, because, you know, that just allows somebody to, again, ad lib how they feel things are going, or look at other key performance indicators like viewership or compliance or, you know, legalities. Compliance, legality is not always a best measurement. You know, decency and ethics and professionalism and looking after your team are other measurements that weren't taken into place on this occasion.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that the incoming Director General, one of the things that is going to put in place is that all members of the executive are involved in all major decisions, and that minutes effectively of those conversations are kept. I mean, that's a solution to a problem, but that was the most basic of things that should have been in there in the first place and should have been scrutinised to ensure that they're in there. I know it's not quite what you were referencing just now, but I'll get to that in a moment. But the big solution is, I think, what we had a fair expectation already existed.
Yeah, and I think some of the stuff that has been heard in the last week or so is a lot of it is unbelievable. But the fact that it's got to the stage where it is unbelievable makes us probably look at what was happening in the last 5 or 10 years. Why was this not looked at more closely than it has been? And why is this information only come up now when it had to come up when they were really, really forced their hand? And even when that opportunity was given 2 weeks ago, the full information wasn't coming out. It was as if there was a culture of, I'll tell you on a need to know basis rather than, for the greater good of the state.
Yeah, and one of the missions is to come in and change the culture in this company. So when we say that, because we sort of repeat it, and I wonder, do we really think what that actually means? We just say there's a culture of this, that, and the other. So what culture do you believe exists there? And will the type of measures that you are proposing address that?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because we can't with any accuracy say what the culture is because there's no measurement of the culture. And, if we go back to the Peter Drucker statement in the mid-50s, which is really, really relevant, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And it's not the strategy or the policies and the procedures of any organization that'll win the day, it's the culture. And part of that culture is how they treat each other internally. So what are the internal workings of that? So the reality is there is no measurement of that. And that might be for good reason, because it may not have suited everybody that there was a spotlight shone on the organisation. And a lot of the time, the reason that employee experience or employee engagement is not measured is that it's perhaps the decision of senior management or some senior management not to measure it. But what's becoming more and more evident through lots of really rich research is that the companies that are successful, the good and the great, and that's not always the Amazons and the LinkedIns and, the ones that we hear great stories about, but it might be a small, medium enterprise with 20 or 30 people. And their success is based on how they are internally. And that probably has been the big shift in the last 10 years. But RTE, for some reason, just didn't follow that. They didn't create any measurements of their culture. You can measure culture. You can measure employee experience. You can measure employee engagement. And some of the statistics coming out, from the States, for example, would suggest that 60% of people working in organizations are disengaged. They are not engaged. So you take the loss of that. If that was the case with the 2,000 employees at RTE, if there was a level of disengagement simply because their voice wasn't heard, what's been the financial loss there? So it's no point rolling out flip-flops or a borrowed Renault car when perhaps the losses are many, many, many more millions or billions because of the failure to measure the culture internally. So, it's great to hear the director, Kevin Backhurst, coming in this morning saying there's a wish now to change the culture. Reality is there's no base measurement of what that culture is. There's only the ad hoc information. So
the only problem is sometimes I wonder, you don't ask a question because you don't want to have to deal with the answer. And there were an awful lot of individuals doing really very well, be it in the executive or some of the more high-profile presenter staff. Do you want to ask the people lower deck how things are going when they will tell you things aren't really going great here? We've taken a pay cut. We don't have the right equipment. We're recording voiceovers in toilets. When we don't feel we're getting the support for. I just wonder, was there the culture being that the people at the top probably didn't want to? Because the thing about media, it's a funny old thing. A lot of people would almost do it for free. You know what I mean? For whatever reason or another. And I think that sometimes that can be a little bit exploited. And I just wonder if they were afraid to ask that question. The biggest cultural problem is that a certain group of individuals were doing really, really well. And as long as the deckhands kept quiet or weren't asked, we can keep this gravy train running.
Yeah, and I think you're right. You asked the question, do you want to? At senior management level, obviously they didn't want to, but should they have had to? Yes, they should have had to. And that's where the accountability and the management and the governance comes into play. But that governance is not only the board of governors who are in there, it's the politicians that we elect and we represent to watch our interests. So again, who's asking the questions of the Public Accounts Committee? Who's asking them the questions?
How big? But that was actually going to be my next question. So I'll phrase it if you don't want to. And I don't mean like heads to roll, let's clear it. I don't mean it like that. But what level of responsibility in all of this do you think has to be directed towards the minister with responsibility, and also the Public Accounts Committee, who we kind of expect are going to be scrutinising on our behalf? We can't have a situation where the politicians stand beside us and go, yeah, that's terrible, we need to do something about that. They're very well rewarded for us to have an expectation that they're on top of things like this. So is there how much of the responsibility falls to definitely the PAC and to an equal extent the Minister for Communications?
I think quite a bit of it, to be very honest, because again, the responsibility of checking out what was the state of play within RTE. I don't know if how you felt about it, but for many, many years you always heard this sort of rumbling of discontent coming out of RTE. It's our state broadcaster. This is not news. The last few weeks has not been news. I would know of people who have worked there, and you touched on it earlier on. They are so dedicated that they would work 16 hours a day and get paid 8 because they just love what they do. But, was their voice heard throughout this process? No, it wasn't. Did the politicians and did those who had ministerial responsibility know that there was rumblings? Of course they did. this is not a surprise to them in recent weeks. So I think everybody must take responsibility and say, listen, we were caught on the hop here. We were caught off guard. We were caught off watch. And, measurements need to be put in place. If you're going to change the culture, we'll start measuring it for the first place, because you're not going to be able to manage it unless you measure it. There needs to be a number. There needs to be a figure. Every government agency should have, as one of their key performance indicators, the staff satisfaction rating every year, not how they're performing in terms of their financial contribution, but what is the employee experience number? Is it 50%? Is it 40%? Is it 80%? Why is it 80%? So that number needs to come into play so we can, you talk about transparency, and the new director spoke this morning about transparency. Well, you and I and every other license holder wants to see what that transparency looks like in its most simple form. So give us a number, give us a percentage, and then give us the comments of those who are keeping the wheels running, the people that run RTE, and that is, those people who are putting in that extra effort and working the extra hours with no return, and think about how they feel today and in the last 3 weeks hearing some of the stories that are emerging.
Yeah, and I suppose the same advice that you're giving RTE now, you could apply to any company, be it a small company with 6 staff, medium-sized, whatever it might be. This is good practice in every company.
Oh, absolutely. And again, that's where the research, I suppose, that, and the work that we're in, it's not about customer service training at the front end only. That's helpful. But it's about the culture. It's about what's now called the internal customer experience, what's happening inside. And if you work on that, the inevitable outcome is, a better service to the end user and growth for that organisation.
Okay, I think this is the next couple of weeks are perhaps the most important in the history of RTE as to where they go next. I think the public appetite for extra revelations is gone, to be honest with you. I think, there's... Unless it was something huge, it would take an awful lot to bother people now. And I think that they'd be more than happy, maybe, I don't know, I'm just guessing, more than happy to see this story move on now. So I think the next week or two is critical in that that the information keeps coming in terms of the positive.
I agree. I think the circus part of it is over now. It's maybe there'll be a wee bit of a media scrum tomorrow for Ryan Tubridy and his agent coming into play, but I think that again, to say, does a disservice to the bigger picture, the things that need to be looked at. Getting the governance right and getting the management right, and making sure the director, when he does come in, is not stonewalled by a culture that's impossible in the first few months to permeate and to get through and to start changing. The inner workings there.
That's a really interesting. Never thought about the resistance that might be there from within, even with the best of intentions. Okay, that's another one we could have done another half hour on. Okay, Charlie, thank you so much for your time. Have a lovely day. Charlie Boyle there, who's a customer experience consultant. What's your views on what he had to say there? 086 60 25,000, or give us a call on 07491 25,000. And by the way, if you're listening to the podcast of the programme, or if you're listening to the replay overnight, you can text in at any stage. You don't only text in when we're live, and we can pick up your texts the following morning or as they come in. Regarding the issue of sexual violence and the influence of pornography, particularly on young people, this could be addressed in a similar way to how the US banned access to betting sites. A ban on porn websites could be implemented by the state if the political will was there. Alternatively, similar to betting sites in Ireland, an identification process could be introduced to require proof of age via official ID. These may not block all access to the material, but would significantly reduce access. Yeah, I'm not really sure. In this day and age, how bans on how you access stuff on the internet, there's so many different sources from it. Telegram, for example, Twitter, there's more pornography on Twitter than there is on the internet almost, and other places. I know exactly where you're coming from. I just don't see, especially with virtual private networks and how young people could circumnavigate that, and it could even become more attractive if it's harder to get at. Definitely something we need to perhaps explore how it might work. Not 100% sure. The number of Ukrainian pupils enrolled in schools in Donegal has increased by 21 percent, is it? Accounting for 58% of the national increase. The number of students in post-primary schools remain the same, while primary school figures moved from 859 in June to 868 at the end of the academic year. Nationally, there were a total of 15,625 Ukrainian children enrolled across Ireland, a rise of 36 children. Greg, there's no apparent real change being announced today, with the most highly paid RTE presenters being put on RTE books as actual RTE employees, which means the them and us culture of corruption will continue. So all these changes are effectively token window dressing. The problem is that the big name presenters will continue to view themselves as talent, and everyone else will still not considered to have talent of any sort, but mere peasants in the RTE caste system. Well, I suppose if you do bring them on the books, it does change the level of oversight and the control you have on their external activities, if that is the plan. Greg, there's no point in blaming our young people for the drinking culture. What example are they exposed to all their lives? Every event begins and ends with alcohol. People can't do alcohol in moderation. It is one of the most destructive things in society today and causes many other problems indeed. And just to note as well, which I tend to do, that the majority of young people don't actually drink or even drink to excess either. So it's not all of them. And, you know, as I say, even if some of them do, I'm not judging them either. Because I don't know everyone's situations. Parents have been doing that for years. This is paying or offering financial incentives for people not to drink until they're 18. Parents have been doing that for years. I think it's a good plan. It's a minefield out there for our young people, indeed. Hi, Greg. Just checked my bank there. It also took €125 out of my account, and I only put 40 in at probably the same particular station. It will be refunded. It's just an inconvenience. Greg, following that interview with the guy who was overcharged for getting diesel, I got diesel at a Go filling station yesterday. I think you should mention the name and location. I've just checked my bank app and I was charged €125, even though I only got €40 of fuel. Only that you mentioned it, I wouldn't have known. Thanks for the info. I won't use that station again. Well, we don't want you to discourage using it either, by the way. That's not the aim of it. It's something maybe the company needs to look at. Loads of you texting in that have checked their accounts, and all of you down €125 and didn't realise it. Okay. We'll get on to the company and see what they plan to do into the future. As I say, I'm sure they would. It is something they'd want to work on.